What's up, guys? Let's get rid of this one. Go for this one. What's up, guys? You've put 0 time into prepping for PoE2. You're putting 100% of your faith in whatever I put out. Trust. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'm confident. I'm your hero? Whew, that's a lot of responsibility. Why can't I create a character? I have too many characters? I want to test this again. I want to try something. I need to use Bone Storm for bosses. I hate that skill, man. I ain't got no time for Bone Storm. That's too many buttons. But yeah, Abyssal Lich is another really good ascendancy. I know that Dead Rabbit loves that setup. Dead Rabbit's a smart guy. All right. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to try different I'm thinking about using the gem, some of the different gems instead of rapid casting. I can't help but think that rapid casting is not the answer. Let's try my. By the way, guys, I posted Plant Daddy for you. It's up there. It's pinned to the top. And if you guys favorite the build, then it will tell you if I've updated anything. If you click this button here, I'm pretty sure it tells you. You hit track build and favorite, it'll tell you if I change anything. Thanks for the guide, you're welcome. But I want to test one more thing before I'm done with it. I want to test one more thing. My game settings. Yeah, that's weird. It is, for you guys, it's like insanely dark. My game does not look like what you guys are seeing. Holy, let me close my game. Thoughts on SSF, Plant Daddy? Oh, you could play this SSF, absolutely. When is the dev interview, guys? When is the dev interview? It's in an hour? What? Why is it so dark? I I don't know. I changed nothing. No, I don't know. I don't want to mess with the settings because I think it's just something wrong with my OBS. I just need to restart my computer or something. The whole stream is this is just the dark mode streamed for today, guys. I think OBS is just being a dumbass. My game looks completely normal. Let's see here. Is there any good skill that I could cut? Let me try messing with Contagion. Maybe we could do Contagion for fun. That might be something. It drains my mana immediately, though. It's super rough on my mana. Okay, well, here we go. Level 1 plants with absolutely nothing. Insane damage! Insane damage! Why is Monk a trap? Well, it might not be a trap. It might be totally fine, but I've seen at least 15 times in my time playing video games where something is really hyped up from a video and then you end up starting it and it's like giga bad. But that very well could not be the case here, but you know. Contagion seems decent. Contagion's doing work. This is going to be another very tough fight for me. Let's try it. Another super tough fight. It'd actually, I think, be easier if these wolves came, because then they'll spread a contagion to her. A support gem. Printing. Now this is the $1,000,000 question. What do we cut for Entangle? Definitely not any of this. I think we cut Brutality first. And then what? I always make your day. What a guy. Thanks for saying that, man. Sathion, thanks for the prime, man. Zenith, I never have mana. Above 90% mana? Bro, I never have any mana. Mana? What is the base chance for Entangle to crit? 10. It's got a decent chance to crit. Bro, yeah, it only counts if you're above 90% mana. Maybe Zenith if you have your mana solved. I think you just go Brutality for sure. 25% more damage for no downside. It's definitely Brutality. Right now, Brutality for sure. We don't have damage as extra lightning. It's got to be Brutality. Right? It has to be. How are you guys going to solve? Yeah, if you have mana solved, then Zenith would be great. You guys, wait, you guys have mana? Do I have this? Okay. You guys have mana? Jesus Christ. Must be nice. There's no mana problems on Lich. I don't get it. Why would Lich be different? Lich this early is the same as every other class, right? Guys, we're talking about Act 1. Guys, yeah, there's something wrong with my OBS. I don't know why it looks like that. This is the spooky Halloween PoE 2 version. I don't know why it's doing this. I already tried resetting the game and I have no clue. It's probably something wrong with OBS. I probably have to restart my computer. But it's kind of cool. We're seeing dark mode PoE 2. This is actually the new dark mode they're releasing next Friday that they haven't announced. I'm giving you guys a sneak peek of it. Here, this zone will hopefully be better. It's brighter. Nope, it's not better at all. What in the world? Let's turn this off and see what happens. Oh, my game exploded. Plant Daddy is not on Druid. Yes, it is. Okay, that's not it. So it's not the DLSS. Could it be the... I'll just turn this up to +3 for now for you guys. There we go. How about that? My screen is so bright. My screen is crazy bright. It's so wrong. What are we doing? Remaking Plant Daddy? Yeah, I would just want to test what supports we want to use. I think you definitely use Brutality because we don't have any other sources of damage right now. So it's Brutality for sure. And then I need to decide what other gem I want to use. People say Zenith is a good choice, but I never have any mana in Act 1, so I don't think Zenith is an option. Unless you never cast, but never casting feels like shit. Yeah, there's something wrong with my OBS, guys. I'll fix it for tomorrow. I apologize. This is going to be horror movie PoE 2 today. I don't know what's wrong with it. It's not my game, it's my OBS. I don't know what's going on. So Contagion seems very good for Act 1. Maybe I'll throw this in for... Maybe I'll throw that in the notes for Act 1. Do plants count as a minion? No. No. Plants are not minions. I think cutting Contagion in Act 1 is definitely worth it. Open with Contagion, throw your plants at the Contagion, they all die. Okay, Contagion is super good. I am trashing these guys easily. You can do Unearth as well, yeah, to summon minions to just tank for you. I think that's a few too many buttons for my liking, but that's absolutely an option. I use Unearth a lot on a lot of builds. I don't have any mana. Yeah, I actually don't get it. Why are you guys taking Zenith? I never have any mana. How do you guys have mana in Act 1? Zenith? Because of Dead Rabbit? How the fuck does he have mana? You have mana and you can spam? Well, right, but later on, right? What about starting Act 1 with nothing? Sure, later on, but now? We just started. You have no mana either? You guys have mana? Sorry for how dark the game is, guys. Something wrong with my OBS. My game looks fine. But I don't understand how you don't have any mana, but you have banana. Okay, but how does banana help you cast Zenith? How does banana help you use Zenith? Brutality is 25% extra damage for no downside. Why in the world would you not cut brutality? 25% damage for no downside. You think that I'm muted? I'm not muted. Don't you know it's a totem league? Totems are my favorite. I play Ellie Shaman in World of Warcraft. Yeah, so you absolutely have to start brutality, right? Like, certainly. Brutality works immediately. It's 25% damage for no downside. So you have to do brutality. I don't know how it could possibly be any other answer. It's 25% multiplicative damage for no downside. So brutality is first. You guys are telling me that by the end of Act 1, my mana problems are going to be solved. But are you clicking mana nodes to make that happen? Are you clicking mana nodes? Does anybody know what the base critical strike damage is? Is it double damage? Is it 50% more damage? What is base crit in PoE 2? Does anybody know the answer? Like, maybe you can take Zenith when you get Wild Surge Incantation, because that makes it cost a lot less, right? Wild Surge Incantation is 50% reduced mana cost. Before then, it can work. It depends on what kind of gear you get. Wait a minute. You guys get gear? Dude, your guys' playthroughs must be so much different than mine. You guys have gear? You guys have mana? What the fuck? Oops. See, is there mana stuff around here? So if you talk to her, people said you could just go straight through the roots. That's a lie. So if you reset at checkpoint, though, you can go through immediately. How don't I take any mana nodes? Because I never have mana problems later. We can absolutely watch the tavern talk, guys. When is it? In 40 minutes? Oh, a sapphire charm? Lit. Tattered robe. It's much better than this. I have a level 3 gem. Entangle for sure. Yeah, I don't know. There's something wrong with my OBS, guys. I don't know what's wrong with it. I'll fix it by tomorrow. I don't know what's going on. For now, we're testing the new dark mode in PoE 2. I want to see if Zenith is possible after we click Wild Surge Incantation. Now here comes the $1,000,000 question. Now, what do we take? You guys are saying Zenith, but I think there's no way. Maybe Unleash, faster casting, controlled destruction. When is the interview, guys? Overabundance. Just cast. I don't think it's overabundance. That just lets you make. Yeah, I don't think we need that. Rapid casting is not terrible. Heft, yeah, great idea, Texasy. Let me just put a T5 gem in. Rapid casting is what I was already recommending. Rapid casting is pretty good. Controlled destruction is definitely an option. The problem is the base chance to crit is pretty good. For Entangle, it's 10. I'd give up 10% chance to crit. Can I see? Here it is. They do. I have a 10% chance to do twice as much damage. This is 0.1 times 100 is 10% increased. If we have a 10% chance to do 100% more damage, the effective damage increase is 10%, right? So I'd be giving up 10 to get 25. So I'd get plus 15, but then I would brick my ascendancy later, so I'd have to switch it later anyway. So I could turn it on, Mike. So yeah, rapid casting seems pretty good. I don't know. I think controlled destruction is not right either. Zenith would be the best choice if we could solve our mana. So I think we cut rapid casting, and if you can solve your mana, swap it to Zenith. I want to... that's another thing I was thinking about trying is Unleash. Let's try Unleash, see how that goes. Unleash could be a thing. Did I even put it in? That's what she said. This guy's a god! Satan? Unleash is feeling pretty good. I don't see anything here about mana. Unleash feels pretty good to use. Oh, let's go south. So I think we take Contagion for sure. Contagion is worth. Bro, where do you want me to go grinding your games? Unleash is pretty good. I kind of really like Unleash. This is great. Maybe we go Unleash. I mean, I'm trashing these guys. Unleash is pretty good. Adios, amigos. Two Regal Orbs. Wow. Does Dead Rabbit take any does Dead Rabbit take any skills with Entangle in Act 1? Does he take Contagion or something else? Has anybody looked at his build? He takes Volcano. Oh, I don't like Volcano. Volcano sucks, man. Volcano pisses me off. What? My plants can't hit these guys or what? They're standing right on top of my plants but taking no damage. What happened? Ow! Dude, I'm lagging so badly. What's going on? Wah! My OBS is in dark mode. I'm lagging. I'm crying. There's some mana. Mana. Okay, I just got a bunch of mana. That's nice. I want to see if I go for Wild Surge Incantation, then can I take Zenith or no? And if not, is there a mana notable right next to the passive tree that I could take that would allow me to use it? Grinding Gear Games is releasing dark mode for PoE 2, and they chose me as the beta tester to show it off. So this is dark mode, guys, coming in the next patch. Okay. Oh, is it over here? Wow, I was standing right next to it the whole time. Stupid idiot. Will this be my starter build? Absolutely. Absolutely. What kind of attack is this? Filled the entire arena with tornadoes. This is a much better base, is it not? Let's see if we can get good stats on it. Well, alright, whatever. We ball. Now I have 100 mana. 144, I mean. Hey, what's up, Verdak? By the way, one of my friends asked me if I would run heroics with them tonight. So I don't know what you and Mary are doing, but if you guys want to do a bunch of heroics, that's what I'm going to be doing tonight, helping a friend. You tried out Volcano, it's fine. There's nothing fine about Volcano, man. You gotta charge it up and throw it, and Volcano sucks, man. Ah! Did plants get hit with the nerf? Not really, barely at all. We're chilling. Here's where we struggle. Wonder if I could just use my auto attack to put shock on her. There we go, shock. And now we attack. This is going pretty good, actually. She still has shock on her. There we go. Shock immediately. Wow. The base skill on this staff is excellent. That was actually really good. Yeah, I have the full build guide already out for you guys. For this early in the game, for literally no gear, that was pretty good. Yes, sir, it's there. I'm gonna change only the Act 1 part a little bit, I think. I'm gonna definitely put Contagion in there. I might play Unleash instead of Rapid Casting. Unleash seems very good. Very good. How is this build versus the Pinnacles? I killed every Pinnacle boss last league, like, instantly. Like, less than a 10-second fight. I also killed the Pinnacle Arbiter. That was like a 30-second fight. Pinnacle Arbiter was more like 30 seconds. I cleared, I believe, the final simulacrum as well. Yeah, I cleared the final simulacrum as well. But simulacrum got nerfed. Guys, Guys, I would show you right now. I would show you my plant daddy, but I think I gave away the gear. My guy's only wearing half of his gear. I think I gave my gear away to a friend. So I don't have all the... I have the weapons, which is the most important thing. I would show you right now how powerful it can actually get, but... That guy just... Did that trash mob just 100-0 me? The fuck? Dude, each of those bolts hits me for half of my health. Nice mobs grinding your games. Yeah, I know all about those guys. Those monsters killed my most powerful hardcore SSF character ever. I had a god tier spark sorcerer that could just giga delete any single map like at warp speed. And I was flying through a map and there was an elite one of those guys. And I went through and I shot a million sparks everywhere and they all hit him. And he died pretty much immediately. But it took like 8 sparks to kill him. So he shot 8 9,000 mile an hour Randy Johnson fast bolts at my sorcerer in like 0.1 seconds and killed my best character of all time. It was literally a community funded multi-mirror build, laughing my ass off. Red, I'm not sure if you've fallen and hit your head, but let's try this again. My plant daddy character, not my cast on crit comet blood mage. No one gave me anything for my plant daddy character. Plant daddy, not my comet sorcerer. These guys, man, where do they come from? Plant daddy. Ugh. Holy fuck! Okay, now we should be able to kill him here. We've got the shock up. There we go. Not bad. Exactly. 2 more years. 2 more years. Is this a slow version of D4? This game is much slower than D4 by many orders of magnitude. This is an ethical build. Guys, we're in Act 1 with nothing. Guys, have you guys ever played PoE 2 before? This is what happens when you're in Act 1 with nothing. If you make a new character with no twink gear and you don't go spend all of your money at the vendor or gamble 100 items, you will have abso-fucking-lutely nothing. This is the damage that you do with nothing. Have I tried Twister? Yeah, I think Twister is broken. I'm very surprised that they did not nerf it. I would not be surprised at all if they do nerf it, before the season starts. I I would not be surprised if they nerf it. Hi Mary, how's PoE 2 compared to PoE 1? It's slower and more methodical gameplay. It's not broken, it's speculation. There are way stronger builds. What I'm talking about is leveling up in the campaign with nothing. I'm not talking about endgame. I'm talking about, aren't people using Twister to level up? Doesn't Twister kill the bosses in 2 swings with nothing? That's definitely broken, right? It does. It needs to be nerfed, and it will be adjusted before launch. Still good. You heard plants got nerfed. James, who told you plants got nerfed? Who told you that? Who told you that plants got nerfed? Hello, 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 hello. Are you armor energy shield or armor evasion for plants? Never evasion. So I think armor ES is a great way to level up, and then in the end game we go pure energy shield. I'm playing Oracle. I'm playing Oracle. Yeah, Essence Drain Contagion is extremely powerful in Act 1. You get the Keystone pretty quickly. I mean, it's not that far. So, what I do is I take these nodes while I'm waiting, and then I respec out of them, and then I go for Wild Surge Incantation. How do you regain energy shield on Oracle? Just kill all the monsters on the screen, then let your energy shield regenerate. I almost never, ever die on Plant Daddy. They can't kill me. Yeah, Mary, this is the PoE 2 treat. Let's watch this interview, guys. I know everybody really wants to watch this. Let's watch this. While we wait for this to start, let's get DM chatting here.
My last set of ads is playing now. I can't do another one.
Is this also super dark, guys? This?
Okay. I'm taking a bio break.
All right, do what you gotta do.
Yep, I'll be back.
Okay, Gauzy Cam. I mean, we're waiting on the.
Looks fine.
We're waiting on the boys, Jonathan and Mark, to show up. So I gotta size and put everybody into the cutout and all that. So it's gonna take a moment.
All right, so let's go. Let's see. I already said that we would take. I think we take.
Bait someone to say 6-7. Man, this 6-7 brain rot, bro. How long's the interview? I'm gonna try and make it like an hour, hour and a half. Try and make it shorter. The last one we did was like 2 hours and like 45 minutes or something. Like it was just kind of long. Doesn't make a very good YouTube VOD. I'm gonna try to condense it down a little bit more this time. Ask him about trials. Yeah, actually, I do have a question that's like, where the fuck's Toda? Like, basically, is one of the questions. Yeah.
So.
Longer. Yeah, I don't know. You do too long of an interview, you start zoning out, bro. What's up, Fub? Don't worry, Fub. My first question on the list is why are you not nerfing bows? Like, you should nerf bows completely and destroy them entirely. How long is this, by the way? Here we go again. This fucking guy. Same question. I can run another set of it. All right, boys. You guys are gonna tank. Bo's got nerfed twice this patch. That's it. Only twice.
Only twice. That's not enough.
Should have been added 0 to that. Should have been 20. Why are they still in the game? That's my question. Why the fuck are you guys not delete Bo's yet? I gotta run this.
Need to add a line to nerf Fub as well, not just Bo's.
So GGG, why is Fub Gun not permanently banned? Sad Bo haters.
That's a good intro.
Yeah, I like to start it with a hot community topic, like permaban win. You got sushi the other day? Sushi? Wait, really?
Right?
Then got sushi. Sushi's not banned, is he? Is he banned from Twitch or something?
Sushi banned?
No, that's not what he'd
bring in my other account.
No, he's fine. The channel's fine. He's memeing, surely.
Yeah, what happened to Sushi?
Sushi got one week ban. Oh, I don't know. I missed that.
Okay.
All right. Last set of ads should be good. You guys should have no ads during the thing now. Should cover all of it.
Not seeing anything.
Yeah, this was a good meme. Concoctions don't give up.
I mean, I played Essence Drain Contagion
hardcore. Be the first ever player to make
what do I do on my own
build? Me in the history books is Concoction Man, and I springboard my streaming and YouTube career from where I'll poach all of Fubgun and Jungroad's builds for my own fan bases. I'll proceed to make fun of Quinn as he dies and fails to craft once I hit 1 million subs or 10,000 average viewer, then retire the WoW. This is a guy named Crucial1711 posted this shit in my chat.
Here's
retired WoW.
That's what he
here's
said.
Essence Drain Contagion.
Dude. Apparently that's what he's gonna do. They didn't get buffed, so like I can't wait to see magnified it, area. All of our fucking careers are over. This guy's coming for us.
It's done for. We were getting too old, man. Did I tell you about my weird interaction with some kids in a grocery store the other day? Like a week ago, 2 weeks ago?
I don't know. Are you going to say, like, is this the end game of this? You're going to say, like, Skibbity Riz or some shit? Like, that's where this is
That's
going.
what they said. Just
I fucking
randomly.
knew it.
dude, like, randomly in one of the aisles, one of the kids screams at the top of his lungs, "Skibbity Sigma," and then they start giggling and walking away. And
It's
I'm
a
like,
kid.
so
They're
shocked.
probably
Never
trolling you
experienced-
because they're like, look at this old fucking dinosaur walking around. Let's confuse him. That's probably what it was. And you're still talking about this story like 17
Yeah,
minutes
it
later.
worked.
So, like, I mean, you kind of took the L on that one.
It worked.
I mean, it was just such a surprise. I was like, what the hell? What is going on? Like, I've only heard of that. I've just never experienced it like that.
Get shit on, I guess.
Clearly. Well.
Is Ghazi pushing 40? Brother, he's pushing 70. Ghazi's 68.
What the? Brother, we're the
Crazy.
same age.
I don't know what you're talking about, brother. I'm 22. I look young. I feel young. I'm great. You're a old ass over there with a house and kids. It's over, dude. It's fucking over. Yeah, I got motorcycles in my garage and long hair and a rock star lifestyle.
Well, last time we talked about your motorcycles, you said that you're scared of driving because of other drivers.
Fuck
you told
yeah,
me that
I am.
It was bad for me to buy one.
Fuck yeah, that's true. You got me. I stand by that, dude. 100%. Every year I add to my like piling of years here. Like the more I go, the longer I go. I look in this. I go to my garage and I'm like, this shit's a death trap. Like, how the fuck do I like? Why do I even own these things? I'm gonna start
I look
dumping
skinny
them.
minus
They're
the
not-
6. I've been lifting for
They're
3
not a good
months,
idea,
Heather.
bro.
I'm a fighter
Uber
now.
with no
I'm a
healthcare
fighter.
and a motorcycle is a bad combination. I'm gonna go pee. I'll be right back.
Do so.
Hey, it's Travic. What up, Travic?
I've been lifting.
All right, boys, we got about
What's up with
3
you?
minutes. So when DM comes back, we're gonna start setting up the scene real quick, and then we have an interview. And like DM mentioned earlier, when I had my bio break, we're not aiming to do like a 50-hour interview. These tend to get pretty drawn out and long when they're done live. Last time we had it was like 2.5, 3 hour long. It was crazy. So what we're trying to do, we've condensed it down to. I
You're
hope we're gonna
recruiting
hit
in
about
WoW?
1.5 hour. The aim was a little bit less than that.
I was
but,
asking Mary and
we always go
Verdak if
beyond
they
what
wanted
we
to
aim
do
for, so
heroics
about
today.
1.5 hours, kind of like the.
What do you
sweet
need
spot
to
we wanna
do,
aim
Heather?
for.
What do you need
It'll
help
be
with?
digestible for people to actually stay and listen to. That's the plan.
Yeah, I've been lifting
I can actually
tacos to
send
my
another set of
mouth.
ads. If you're not a subscriber, hold
I
on to
wish.
something. There you go. Have fun.
You need the rep to do the
the last
heroics.
set of ads.
Which rep do you need?
Yeah. This will be up on YouTube later. Yes, correct.
Yeah, I'll be posted.
Oh, you're
on
chilling with your
Ghazi's
brother?
channel.
All right,
Wash
it's
your hands,
me,
you took a whole
Marion.
shower,
It's
actually.
me, Marion,
Pretty
Heather.
good
It's
type
me
of
with
shower.
all the girls. What a
They're
surprise.
really clean. Oh shit.
Yep.
Sounds good.
All right, like we're gonna get like a crazy level of spam, and I only have one fucking mod. So in order to make this like at least somewhat readable, if we end up getting to the point of getting Q&A, this is now a 1 hour only follower chat. GG. All the people that are only showing up to this to spam, like, you know, what is it? The Among Us dudes with the dick ASCII or something, like GG. Okay, let's see here. Slow mode it.
Rax the ladies, man.
Yeah, slow mode's
Slow
a good
mode.
idea. Slow
I
mode
have
is
been
a
accused
good
of that
idea.
before. No,
And
not
feel free
really.
to like release the hammer. Like, don't do any permabans,
I'm-
but you're welcome to get
I'm
people,
a-
like, multiple hour bans.
I'm a
If you do
recluse.
anything
I
weird, that's fine. I'm not gonna have the chat open. Just,
if you
like,
put me
heads
in
up.
a social situation, I can
just gonna put it
be
on default slow mode
I
here.
can be
The chat's
very
not gonna be open 'cause I'm gonna
social
focus on just,
or
like,
whatever.
yapping about
but
0.5 and
if you
stuff.
gave me the
But I will
choice,
pull
I
up
would
the,
Blair
I will
Witch
pull
in
up
a
the
dark
chat if
corner
we
of my
have
house
enough
and
time
not
for
talk to
rapid fire
anybody.
Q&A. I already asked them, like, you guys cool with rapid fire Q&A at the end? And they
Anas,
said,
how we
sure.
doing, buddy?
So we're gonna try to get, if you guys do have some questions, that would be your time. Okay.
Yes, sir. Shall we?
Riley,
get on
how's
call with
the
them?
leveling
Yeah,
going?
let's-
Riley,
okay,
another
I'm
girl
gonna
joining
have the
us.
standby thing go. You guys aren't going to hear any audio or anything.
We got all
It's just,
girls
like,
in our
normal.
guild.
We'll be
We
back.
got
in a few
Mary, we
minutes.
got
Gotta do all
Heather,
the
we got
technical stuff.
Riley.
Yeah, we'll be right back, boys.
We also have AJ. We also have Alex. We have 5 girls in our guild. There might be more that I'm not even aware of. We got 5 girls. Riley, Mary, Heather, AJ, Alex. Wow. Damn it, I'm out of my fish oil vitamins. Oh well. Your Immortal clan is ran by all women. It's the best. Should I join your Immortal clan and be Raina? And they'll never know. They'll never know. Hi guys, I'm here to play Immortal. Hi Robert, what's up, buddy? What are my thoughts on Chronomancer? Well, it got better, right? Definitely got better. You two are of the female variety. Are you actually, or are you just pretending to be a girl? Raxxan. Yeah, it's a good question, Remedy. I hope they talk about totems. Here's the real question, though. Can any of you guys guess my favorite female of all time? Well, my favorite female was my mom, but she died. Still living, can anybody guess my favorite female? Here's a clue. She is way ahead of everybody. Dolly Parton, Megan Fox, Amaranth, No Cry, exactly. It's Callie, of course. Callie is my favorite. No, guys, it's Callie by far. Who is Callie? Let me see if I have a picture of her. Let me see. Let me see. No, I don't want to. I didn't say download it. I said open it. Stupid ass Discord. I said open it.
And you share that on the Discord?
Downloaded
the overlay screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Grab this here. Downloads. Should.
We're going to do just a quick audio test. So we're going to start with myself. I'm just going to be reading chat. This will be the one point in which we're reading chat, and chat will be minimized. I'm not going to be seeing you guys, but how's my audio, everybody? Everyone good? You can hear me? Chat looks fine. Yeah.
That's Callie.
We're all good. Okay, yep. Ghazi, audio test, Ghazi.
Mic check. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, mic check.
Cool. Jonathan.
Is that good?
Yep. Checking 1, 2, 3. Hopefully it's all good.
And Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Roberts from house right now. New Zealand somewhere, testing volume. Check.
Perfect. Okay. Sounds like we're all good. All right. Chat's going away. All right. And I think we're ready to get started, boys.
I'll just be right in the middle. Why not?
Thank you for having this conversation with us, talking about 0.5, the reveal you guys have showed, and some other things. Today, I don't know the number of the podcasts we're on, but it doesn't really matter. So we're going to get started with some opening questions. So I'll just pass it off to Ghazi to kind of get started with the icebreaker.
Yeah, I mean, we'll just start off with obviously 0.5 being the largest patch, quote unquote, ever, right? And just curious about the nerves and excitement of levels of that leading up to the reveal trailer itself.
It was pretty crazy because the just development honestly felt very
Is the volume
scattered
fine,
because they were
guys?
working on so many things at the same time. Like normally we're working on like there's usually one focus, but because we're working on so many leagues at the same time, it was just really, really hard to bring together. So I would say it's honestly been one of the tougher development cycles in terms of just like getting the studio to be able to handle everything. Because like even just like a review session, we would go through one and have a look at a bunch of stuff and then be like, oh crap, we totally forgot about this total other area. Like honestly, like so many times I'm like, we've forgotten how much content is even in this damn release. We would just miss stuff, and then so yeah, like it just made it really, 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 really difficult. But also, yeah, when there's so many different scattered things, it is quite stressful because you're like you just have this feeling of like, am I forgetting something all the time? So yeah, real tough one. But the thing is, like in the last having that extra time between the announcement and the release has actually been really, really good because we've kind of getting everything back together again. Like we can sort of see it as a cohesive thing again, and that's honestly been really, really important, especially for doing an in-game release.
Did there come a point when you
Um,
guys were developing it where you kind of were like, hey, okay, we have too much on the scale. Like, this is where we have to stop? Like, because I remember in one of the interviews, Mark was saying he was looking at notes and you had so many notes that you got to a point where you're like, I don't even remember making these notes. You kept
Yeah, yeah.
cooking so much.
The problem that we had is that because we wanted to really make sure that the message was like the end game has totally changed, on some level we just had to do sort of everything. So yeah, even though we might have liked to make it smaller, we kind of honestly couldn't. Which isn't to say there wasn't like a bunch of stuff that we didn't end up cutting anyway, but still, it's been we sort of had to do something. And then like it kind of led to this fact that then we're like a month later than we would hope would be, and that kind of thing as well. So like there's been stuff like that that's kind of definitely been downsides. But overall, I think it is really important because it's just a really important change. Like it really does very fundamentally change how the in game feels. And I was even seeing recently like there are just a lot of people who they wouldn't play the end game of PoE 2 because it just doesn't have a like you need something to sort of like give them some direction, and we just didn't have that. And so now I've got people who are like friends, so they've like played through the PoE 2 campaign, but they've never really been an end game player. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay, I actually am going to play this. Like that's been a thing that I've seen. So it's something that I'm like that I think was really important to do.
Do you think that that's primarily like the reason they didn't play the in game was because of a level of confusion of like, what do I do next? Or do you feel like you didn't have enough like things in it to make it interesting? Because I remember something you come back to like pretty continually when this point gets brought up is like if an area feels like too big or like uncomfortable, that
Right.
a lot of times it's an indicator of not having enough things in it.
I think that that can be the case, but I do think in this situation it really was more the direction. Like you got to the end game before it opens up, and it's like, okay, well now I can just kind of go wherever, right? Like there wasn't really you do need a quest line, like you do need something there, just to give you some form of understanding what to do. And I find even myself, I'm like way more interested in doing end game stuff right now than I was before. Like yeah, like it helps a lot.
Would you say that this is a focus more of the idea of creating a getting off point, or is it more towards just creating a sense of direction? Like which one matters the most, or is it like a mix of the two?
It really is a mix of the two. Like both of those things are important. And we did, I think, in the before we got to developing 050, we were mostly talking in terms of giving people direction. But during 050 timeline, when was it? There was a moment, I can't remember when it was, Mark, but there was some moment where we were kind of like where we realized like the problem with PoE 2 right now is that you don't know when to stop playing. And therefore you have the situation and people just get like more and more bitter about like the fact that they're just doing the same thing again. Like there just wasn't, yeah, that getting off point thing was just super important. So yeah, that was definitely an 050 time horizon when we realized that. And that's also been one of those things where we sort of somewhat later in development, we realized that we had to make the time it took to do the stuff shorter. Like it getting longer and longer was actually a problem as well. Like we actually had something where the amount of time it would take to finish it was too high. And that's even been something we've changed in the last like few weeks even more. So previously we kind of assumed that it would be fine to have like, I can't remember the number there was. There was probably like 25, 30 maps, something like that in each of the areas for the individual leagues. And you had to do all of those in order to get all the points for a league tree. And we were kind of like, that seemed fine at first. Like we sort of thought that would be okay. But actually the amount of time that an average user takes to do 30 maps is actually quite long. And in practice, when you're playing it, it just kind of felt like there was too much there. So then what we decided to do is make it so that when you kill the Pinnacle boss, you get an extra 6 points. So basically, and you can effectively not do 6 of the maps. And then if you go into the infinite and get more keys and kill it again, you basically get 6 points. So you can effectively complete it 2 ways. You either do all the maps one by one, or you kill the Pinnacle boss more times to get more points that way. And effectively, that means that the time taken to actually do one of those league trees has been reduced. And so we're really focusing on basically just making sure that it doesn't feel like it takes too long to do an individual league. So you can make sure that you the cleanup phase part does not feel annoying.
Sure. I think we're now at the where I see it discussing with others, but I think I'm the same, where I'm going to get to the Pinnacle boss, kill the Pinnacle boss, I'm going to get fast.
Kind of cutting out a little bit there. I don't know if it's just on my end, but you're kind of cutting in and out a little bit on
me as well.
Yeah.
Is this better?
Seems better.
Everything working here, testing? Yeah, not sure. Anyway, we're at the point now where when I'm playing, and I've seen this a few other more high-end players in the office as well, I think we really wanted to get to the point where we, as a good player, you should think, okay, I'm going to get to the Pinnacle boss, kill the Pinnacle boss for each league, including the Fortress, and then go into the Infinite. There's something about wanting to do that, and when the completion time for everything was so long, there was like, okay, this is starting to feel too grindy, and I want to get out there. I want to get more Pinnacle kills and all of that, and yet I'm feeling like I'm having to. I guess it's that not wanting to have to turtle for too long. That the same thing the original tower mechanic had, and it started to feel that way, where it's like I want to get out there, but I can't, and I want to move to the next league, but I can't, and so yeah, it's at this. Like I think the number of towers when we first did the presentation to was 8 on the Fortress, and each tower meant every time you killed the Arbiter, you could complete a section of maps. Now it's 5. So like we've been shortening that, and I think the number of maps, I think the total number of maps you have to run to finish the Fortress, if you were to just shortest path, then go farm the Infinite, is now like it's probably actually less than if you were to finish the whole Fortress, which is interesting because at first I was like, surely for doing the whole Fortress should be less maps total, but actually just due to the fact that you don't have determinism when out there, and you're finding other things, you're on other little kind of effectively side quests, it does end up being that you kind of want it to be less maps overall because you're constantly having to do all these other things while in the Infinite. So it's at this nice fine line now where it is balanced. It's feeling a lot better, whereas like before it was definitely, and immediately from a handful of our staff that were playing, they're just like, holy crap, this is taking forever. So it's in a real good spot. And then, yeah, as Jonathan said, now just even all the leagues have the same thing. So only the Fortress had the shortcutting, I guess you could say. Now every single one of the leagues has it to some degree. It's feeling really good, for sure. And yeah, hopefully we'll have to see, because it's that kind of thing as well, where when you play it a second time, you're going to have a little bit of a different feeling about it. And so we'll have to see how that comes as well once we have another league start at some point.
Is that sort of what...
That's usually how...
Go on, bud. Go on.
I was just going to say, like, yeah, that's kind of like the whole cadence of playing something for the first time, because I think that point 1 was the early access launch was like one of the most exciting things ever. Everything was new. We got to experience everything. The second time we play through it, that's when we go nitpicking. Like, you know what? That area is a little too large, or that issue there. You start being, seeing the downsides of things you got annoyed with on the first playthrough, which was overshadowed by the positive things. I'm just curious if this is the reason you guys kind of want to have both of the last acts coming for 1.0 instead of sooner. Is that the same kind of reasoning there?
It's not. That isn't the reason, although that will be an advantage, I suppose. But the actual reason is just that we think that 1.0 needs to have something that like is like there's a lot of people, especially if you're talking about the sort of more casual audience, who the thing they're interested in is campaign stuff, and so by finishing the campaign in 1.0, those people are just going to be attracted to sort of make that release like a good release. And at the same time, I don't think there's like a lot of risk there for us in terms of like we know how to make an act now, if you know what I mean. Like it's not going to be one of those things where we're like, we have to make sure we're testing this because it's gonna it's gonna go off the rails or something like that. Like we know we can do it, so therefore we feel quite safe just putting something like that in 1.0. So yeah, that's kind of like ultimately it comes down to that. And also like right now, the other thing as well is like if we hadn't have added the interludes, we'd probably be feeling pretty differently about this. But because we've got the interludes there to kind of mean that you don't have that whole thing which we originally were going to have during the entirety of early access, which is where you'd have to repeat parts of the campaign. Because we don't have that, it kind of means that like we don't have that thing dragging us down and making the early access feel worse as well. So but I think the thing that has been interesting, yeah, is like all that sort of campaign replayability stuff as well. That's been something that I'm really hoping that people will see that we've made some pretty big strides there this time as well. Like the replaying thing, the more times you replay it, the more annoying certain things get. And I saw some freaking short recently that DM made with you like being like, oh yeah, I hit it as soon as Act 3. And actually, that was the moment, by the way, when I saw that, is like, I'm gonna fix this freaking lever thing that everyone's complaining about. You know, like, it's actually sorted
Hell
out.
yeah.
You know, because I'm like, I don't want that to be the video that I'm seeing again. You know, that one. So yeah, then that was like one of the few things in the campaign replayability section I patch noted specifically because I was like, people are going to be happy to see that thing. But there are stuff like that all around the place, right? Like we're improving a bunch of things around, and like then there's just some areas that were there were some areas that were too big and stuff like that, and like sort of annoying layouts. I mean, like just some simple examples is there was like after you kill Viper, there was like a little bit of extra level after killing Viper, and now after you kill Viper, it's like directly onto the exit to the next zone. And
Thank
it's just
God.
like it's just stuff like that all over the place that we're doing, you know, just streamlining and smoothing and stuff like that. So I'm hoping Act 3 will feel a lot better now than what it has in the past. Like I think it's a pretty significant improvement. But the other one as well is like and this one, so I had an interesting experience recently where the build that I was playing was like not good. And it's been a little while since I played a really bad build. And like the monster density and the interludes when your build is bad is actually pretty damn terrible in terms of like the ability to clear through them. Like it was oppressive. And at some point I realized, like I was playing in an area called the Stones of Searle, which is like that one with the standing stones. And I was like, at what point did we get it to the point in the interlude where you no longer have to move? Like you never use movement. Like every single thing you're doing is just attacking. And then because there's so many monsters, like you're just attacking your way from one place to another, and it just like never ever ends. And I'm like, this is actually kind of like this is a grind. Like this is actually not good. Like campaign should not be like this. And so then it sort of forced me to be like, okay, there's some serious issues here. And we actually found this one's actually a little bit I don't like fully know that this is why this happened, but I think what happened was that there was some things about the pack density in campaign where we had like the last few areas get to a certain density. What used to be the last few areas being like, you know, the last couple of areas of Act 3, and then some of that stuff kind of continued on like deeper into the campaign than whereas it should have like dialed back again after being higher in those last few areas. And so I think that's probably what happened. But it just meant that some of those areas and but especially interlude just got ridiculous. And so that's something that I don't think I would have realized if I wasn't playing such a crap build. Because but I suspect that a lot of players are getting that experience. So that's been something I really want to try and address a little bit more. And I think that there's even some of that going on at the start of Endgame as well. Like there's a few things there that that if you're got a crap build, like you don't notice it if you don't if you've got a good build, but if you've got a bad build, it can actually be really oppressive. So like another one recently, I don't know if you want me to talk about this about the whole poise thing with powerful bosses. Like, are you good for me to mention that?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, so here's an example of something. So I was playing something that required freezing. It was actually it was the werewolf freeze combo, right? And I encountered it. But as I said, my build was crap. I was not building it well, and I got to a powerful boss to get the map upgrade, and I was like, okay. Normally, plus 100% life would kind of like, sure, it makes the boss fight twice as longer, but for some reason I was hitting this powerful boss and it made the fight feel like 3 times or worse. Like it was like really, really hard, like way harder than I expected. And it took a little while of asking around to try and find out what was going on here. But effectively, because my DPS was so dependent on getting the freeze, and we had a thing where when the boss gets life is doubled, effectively the poise thresholds, which we use for calculating, like resistances to things like getting frozen, got doubled as well. It meant that effectively my DPS was getting like maybe not halved, but something like halved due to the fact that I wasn't getting the freeze. So my damage was half, the monster had double life, so it's effectively taking me 4 times longer to kill this boss.
Sounds like
what
he has
it
the
normally takes. And I was
shittiest
literally
build
running out of
ever.
blast charges, and just like not being able to beat this thing. I'm like, I've hit a progress blocker upgrading from like T1 to T2 maps here. Like this is a bad situation, and I'm like, yeah, sure, my build's crap, and I could fix that, but like, why? Like my crap build should be able to do this, right? Because this is one of those things where, you know, like if you're talking T1 maps, like this is something that an average player should not find as the roadblock, you know? And yeah, so it's like seeing there's still things like this around that we haven't realized, that we just need to uncover and improve. And like this is one of those things where it really is quite context dependent in the situation where you find something like that. You know, and like, and to give you another example of a random one I ran into just yesterday, is okay, so the boss in the Bloodwood, I was fighting it, and I was talking to my friend who was sitting next to me, who was, you know, like every weekend, you know, he'll come over and we'll talk about various things. And I'm like, he was like, oh, that boss health bar is really long. And I'm like, well, how long should it be? Like, how long should it take to kill a boss? This kind of thing. This was the conversation. He's like, oh, for this boss, I'd say, because it doesn't have any interesting abilities at all, that it should be a lot shorter. I'm like, this boss does have a bunch of abilities. This is the Devourer. Like, what the hell? And then I realized, hang on a second, the Devourer and the Bloodwood, none of its freaking abilities are working. Like it just sits there and freaking attacks you, and it doesn't like do the moving around thing. I'm like, how did I never notice this before? Like, and like the problem here is like someone who set that area up, they just forgot to put the markers in. This is what I'm assuming, right? I haven't actually looked into it, but I'm assuming they just forgot to put the markers down that control the place where that boss can move. And like you look at something like that, and you're like, and it's like it's so easy as as like a higher end player to fail to notice stuff like that, because it's one of those things you only run into when your build is crap and when it's taking you longer and that kind of thing. And so yeah, it's so hard as a developer to notice this stuff, quite frankly. Like, and you just lose sight of it. So yeah, the hope is just that, you know, that we can actually find all this stuff and fix it. Like it does. It just you know, it just takes a lot of iterations to sort of actually end up noticing stuff like that.
So I want to follow up on. I want to follow up on.
You go with first.
Yeah. I want to follow up on one point you said there, because I'm actually really interested about it, which is you said you realize you had a bad build, right? And then you were feeling swarmed because you got a bad build. And you're getting swarmed by mobs, right? So how do you come to the diagnosis of when it's like, okay, my build is bad, but also like part of the problem is I'm getting swarmed, as opposed to like, okay, maybe some of these skills aren't really in the position where we feel like they should be in order to clear the mobs. When do you decide that it's the content is the issue as opposed to the skill you're utilizing?
My first reaction there was to compare effectively default attacks, because the werewolf build I was using was like shred, and like, yeah, there's stuff that like there's stuff that I should have done for supports in order to make that better and so on. But we just sort of like looking like the first port of call was go to you know, go to designers who know about like the, you know, getting the numbers right, and basically say like, is my build okay? Is the numbers right in terms of comparison? Like you just have to get that information right. And like we decided, you know what, like it is like what you've got here with your build isn't good, but in terms of the underlying skills, it is okay. Like the numbers are fine. So like that was an investigation, and then there's the question, okay, like your build is bad, but you know, are your items just bad? And no, they were, yeah, you know, your items are fine. It's like, here's a look at your passive tree, and it's like, okay, so my passive tree was like bad in the way that like you could definitely be a lot better, but I was kind of on purpose this time taking a bit more of a defensive approach. Like I was like, if I'm the kind of person who's going to allocate way more defenses and way less damage, and just like sort of see how that goes for me, you know, that was like kind of part of what I was doing there. So yeah, like I wanted to make sure that it can be okay even in that situation. Yeah, like there's also this other situation where if you're a good player, then because you're hitting the whole screen, like the amount of monster density in a situation like that isn't necessarily, or at least like depending on a build, right? Most builds that are good have some kind of, you know, they've got big AoE clear, right? Like they have the ability, like it doesn't necessarily matter whether there's like 40 monsters on screen or 15 monsters on screen in terms of like their ability to clear that content. So it sort of matters more for a build that doesn't have that as much, which I wasn't doing as much. So in the situation where you're a character like that, then the only thing that's the extra monsters are really doing is just giving you more drops in experience. And so we sort of have to make sure that like we're able to make sure that that's not broken. But I do think that we don't need, quite the level of spamminess that we had, in terms of just like tiresomeness. Like even something as simple as like there's a moment between one fight to the next where your energy shield can recover. Just literally something as simple as that can be like something that can matter a little bit there. Like if it's just absolutely continuous, then there is a problem there, especially during campaign.
One other follow up about this point, then I'll pass it off to Ghazi. As you said, you were kind of purposefully taking a more defensive approach, and I'm kind of curious at what realizations you came to. Like, what was your conclusion about making the build? I'm like, I'm going to heavily, more focus on defenses this time as opposed to damage on the tree. Like, what was your experience like with that?
Well, I mean, the thing with defense that's really hard to solve is that it's way harder to appreciate defense when you allocate it than damage. Like it can be quite like it does save you, but it's really hard to know that. And actually, I've got another thing a little bit with Runic Ward here as well, which I noticed as when I was doing this, which is that so I had some Runic Ward, and Runic Ward obviously, you get to one life, and then it saves you and so on. But that's another one of those things that's really hard to appreciate. And I'd look down at my life sometimes, and I'd notice that my Runic Ward was like halfway filled. And I'm like, okay, so at some point there, I would have died, and I just didn't know that. Because I'm like flasking or whatever, so I've got like a half health at the point where I look, but yet my water's down as well. It's like I actually didn't appreciate the fact that that ward had saved me. So then I was thinking about this, and I'm like, we actually need something like an audible, like, oh, my ward, I've lost my life, my ward is broken. Like we need some kind of sound to indicate that, to sort of say that like you actually got to the point where that ward helped you, so you actually can appreciate the fact that the defense worked. But then I was like, hang on a second, why do we not have a sound for energy shield breaking? Like, how have we gotten to this point and we don't have a sound like that? And then I actually looked into it, and it turns out we do have that sound. There is a thing there. It's just that because it happens when you get hit, and because when you're getting hit, there's a lot of sound going on. There's immediately this like the thing where effectively you don't hear it, right? You might as well not hear it. And what we really need is a sound that's more like when you get heavy stunned. There's like, sorry, not when you get heavy stunned. When you heavy stun a monster, there's like sort of sound that's quite distinctive that kind of cuts through everything that you sort of like learn to hear. I really need to sound like that when your energy shield breaks, because that's a moment when you should be thinking, oh shit, like you need that moment. And I think that having that audible sound, like we actually do need to lean into a little bit more of those kind of things. But like there's not like necessarily a realistic sound, but it needs to be a sound that can cut through all the other stuff that you're hearing, so that you just sort of know that you've hit that moment. And that's the kind of thing that can really make you appreciate defensive layers, is like just more of those cues. Now, I'm not sure how you do that for something like armor or like, things like that. Like there's like evasion, even like ideally you would be able to feel when you had more evasion versus not. And right now you just kind of can't. But I do think that is something that you need to do to make those defenses be more appreciated, because they do work. It's just that you often don't appreciate that they do.
I'm very impressed with Jonathan's
I have a few
consistent
things on your
speed
build, by the
of
way.
talking.
I honestly think your passive tree is 100% fine. I don't even think it could be that much better. I think it's completely good. Your gear, completely fine. And by the way, and like because I was looking at your character, and I was like, when you're clearing, you're quite tanky. It's appreciable. It's fine. And then so I was like, okay, the gear is good. The tree is fine. Like, sure, it could be better, but like, on a level that honestly shouldn't be necessary. I was like, you are defensive. Like when you're playing, your character's not just like, up and down in life all the time. It's like quite consistently, if you're on full life, and it's certainly you have decent armor, decent energy shield. It's working. But yeah, it was interesting. I think you said to me at that point, because I was like telling you, I was like, you're fine. Like, what are you talking about? And then you were like, what did you say? You said, what? Okay, if it's not my character, what do I have to change as a person in order to be able to do this content? I was like, wow. But honestly, the biggest flaw you had was just your support gems. That was the biggest actual issue. But it's like you didn't do the wrong thing there. You just didn't do necessarily the right thing. Like you just did what was intuitive. And so there's some highlighting there, and it's like, because you said you followed the recommended supports for Shred.
So that is the thing that I was doing specifically, yes.
Dude,
I was like, you did.
I never.
You were also the developer that
recommendations.
said what they were, and so you could have made. There's a question of did you make a wrong decision as a player, or did you make a wrong decision as a developer? And there's an interesting thing there of trying to assess which of those went wrong. And so then it's kind of like, okay, sure, those fixed and made it a bit better, but we did make a pretty hyperactive set of changes based on your play experience, because when you were like, what do I have to change as a person? It's kind of like, well, honestly, you should be able to kill this boss. You should be able to get further, and this is too hard and isn't working correctly. And then there were a number of encounters, and it was actually quite interesting to because I just watched you play for like 4 hours, and I was just like,
did Mark just subtly say that Jonathan sucks?
You know,
is that what he said?
It is true. I don't have a relatable personal experience to what was happening there. Like, normally be in a substantially better position to just have a bit either via more planning or again, I don't put in the wrong supports.
Your character is fine and your tree is fine.
I was like, oh,
you just suck.
And then it's like, how do you even know to look for that if you didn't know to look for that? So there's a bunch of interesting things here where it identifies when you are watching someone with a bad build.
He takes a big sip of wine.
I guess
I just got roasted on national TV.
You kind of like, you know, what's actually wrong here, and it is true that it is quite hard to relate with, especially on like a personal level. So I'm quite good at, when I observe, I'm quite good at seeing things that people often don't see as well. And but yeah, it's been a really fun amount of like really looking at the early in game, really iterating on it. And I've had the same from a bunch of other developers as well, a bunch of the designers that Jonathan's also been talking to, where they're just like, it's been really fun just getting like, here's the list of problems every day that Jonathan's run into, and then just iterating on them. And they're all so fundamental. They're all like, and I think this is something I want to stress and goes back to, it's something I mentioned to Ziggy as
all
well.
of Jonathan's like, problems, they're just really fundamental.
Like, there's just fundamentally missing
Jesus
things.
Christ.
Like, and this is a really important thing.
Oh my God.
You know, I would say the in game not having goals is a fundamental problem, but I would go as far as the things like the balance go, the basics, the life, the poi, all that thing that Jonathan was talking about. We honestly haven't hit the fundamentals, and this is why, and in the monster density, and this is why it's really important between 0.50 and release, that we're not like adding, and we can actually go, okay, like we need to just make the baseline actually the quality it needs to be. And it's really, really hard to do that when you're making what we just did for 0.5.
Oh my God.
You'll notice
that's insane.
I don't want to say it's void of balance changes, of course, but it doesn't reach the standards of probably what people expect. And that's just because we were making all the new stuff. So hopefully now with everything, filled everything in, we actually get to go back and assess all of those fundamentals about the passive tree. You start with the really core things, the base skills, the base passive tree. They're like, you know, you don't get into too much of the nitty gritty straight away and all the multipliers and combo pieces that come together of what makes a build crazy. It's like really that baseline, life of monsters, damage of monsters, defenses of the player, and via the passive tree, base items. Like, I honestly think that the base items of, like, say, weapons aren't in a good enough spot. There's just a bunch of implicits that a weapon has an implicit and its damage is penalized, and the implicit is just trash. And it's like, why is this even here? It's not interesting. It's not fun. It's just a bad weapon to find. And there's still a bunch of that. And it's just like, that's our lowest level thing. Like, everything else is built on top of that, and we haven't even got that base thing entirely perfect yet. So we have a bit of a plan, and we're going to go a bit feral with it. But I really just want to make sure, we're addressing all of these fundamentals now that we've got, which hopefully will make, you know, I don't think Jonathan should have to change much. I think the balance is just wrong. And I think that he should be able to kill that boss, and now he can, by the way, just to be clear. We did address that immediately. But it's like, it seems like such an obvious thing, and it's like, how the hell have you not done this? But just because we've been producing so much content, like, and I don't even just mean for this patch, it's just been like crazy developing this game, the amount of stuff we're making. It's really hard to actually go, okay, now let's get it to the right spot. And a lot of people compare it to a lot of people compare it to PoE1, and they're like, yeah, but the PoE1 tree has this and this and this, and, you know, stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, but, you know, I remember iterating on that for like 8 years personally. So it's like, you know, there's a bit of a time disparity here, like with our new philosophy. So we will be able to do it. We'll be able to do it pretty quickly. I'm not saying it's going to take 8 years, and we'll be able to get a hell of a way towards perfection, I would say. That balance is ever perfect, as I like to say. But yeah, it's going to be bloody nice now that we've got this absolute behemoth of a patch coming to a conclusion. Not to say there won't still be stuff to fix around that, but that's part of that as well, to be able to actually go and look at, okay, let's figure out what kind of person, what kind of build, what kind of character actually should be able to get to what point of the end game, the campaign, etc. Like, what are the mistakes people are making? What is the flaws in their builds that shouldn't be flaws? Be it the recommended gems, be it the base skill damage, be it itemization, passive tree, everything, and just getting all of that as refined as possible. Which is exciting, by the way, because I find that stuff to be some of the more fun work. So it's kind of...
What's the... Go on, Gazi.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, listening to the both of you talking about this, it's obviously we're expecting this, but it really sounds like there's a ton of minor adjustments from the veterans players' perspective, but might be large changes for newer players' perspective that is coming to the 0.5 update that is not necessarily in the patch notes. Something I was really curious about to hear from the both of you was, what portion of this update do you guys predict to like make the largest beneficial impact for the player's experience? Because we heard from Jonathan talking about his situation there. Are we talking about changes in that sense, in the campaign playthrough, or are we talking about the Infinite Atlas? I just want to hear your thoughts on your prediction on the most beneficial impact for new player experience.
If you're talking about just for new players, I definitely think that it's going to be the sort of early in game, like monster density, like things around there, like late campaign, early in game monster density, things like, just, I mean, we were just talking today. Okay, so here's another random example of a thing that we want to try and do. I hope it'll get an 050, but I think it's going to be a big deal, which is that, like, there's another one of those realizations of, like, I'm fighting a rare, it's got like a shit ton of mods on it, and I'm like, if I just stop like fighting for a second here, just like put on God mode and just watch this rare, like I'm just going to look at what this rare is doing right now, if I'm not killing it. And there is a fucking endless amount of bullshit spewing forth from this rare. And I'm like, there actually is no capability to have any gameplay, like counterplay to this thing beyond just tanking it. You know what I mean? I'm not really able to dodge it. There's so much crap coming out of this thing that, like, effectively my defenses have to be good enough, and there's really nothing else that I would be able to do about it. And like as essence monsters in particular, I believe it was an essence monster that I was looking at the time, and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, we need to do something here, right? Like, it shouldn't be that when you get a bunch of these mods on there that so right now, there's all the different effects that can happen. So we call them daemons. They're like the things that that sit there and cast, like, like when you get like the circles of lightning damage or whatever the hell it is, just like various things like that trigger from a rare. Like every time you add one of those, it doesn't like slow down the rate of the others, and that's like a thing we want to do, effectively make it so that the more of those that go on the monster, like it doesn't, it's not that it like that it casts the same number of them as what it normally casts. Like it would have to increase, but it shouldn't increase where like you get 2 mods and now it's double the number of those effects, because otherwise there's just no ability to get any kind of counterplay with that. So we need some kind of thing that can control, like when lots of mods go on a rare, that it doesn't just turn into an absolute shit fest of like random spam. And so like this is another kind of one of those like fundamental things to identify. And like we'll try to get that info 050, but I think that one of those things is those are the kind of things that I really do think affect new players, because there is a level beyond which of like screen like covering crap that you just kind of give up on it, and now it's like, yeah, it really is just a build check. Like, I'm not going to dodge this, I'm not going to actually try to even do that. It's like, so now my build just has to be able to tank it, or that's it. So that's once again another thing, another one of those fundamentals like that.
This came up a while back. This came up a while back for essences, more so because, again, it is a thing then veteran players are noticing a lot more, where they're like, okay, especially that Silent Caverns, I think it is, unique map, right? And you're like, okay, there's now, this one monster with 6 essences, and we're like, yeah, what we should be doing is implementing like a system where there's like, one or two of the daemons, as Jonathan explained it, one of the kind of more hidden skills that are outputting, the effects that are going on, they occur on a specific cooldown, and the more there are, the longer the cooldown is, and there's some whole system for it that we wanted to do. But like, that was an example of where we checked the, obviously the more extreme case, but then if you actually just come back to fundamental monster mods, like it's even a monster that only has 4 mods, for example, and 3 of them happen to be something where it's like just spamming a bunch of stuff. And the other thing is, each of those just has their own independent cooldown. And so the monster, and let's say it happened to get 3, and each of those cooldowns is, say, 10 seconds. Well, it's going to do all 3, and then wait 10 seconds, and then do all 3, and then wait 10 seconds. So that gets a different thing where at least you get the wait. But if it happened to be that, let's say there was a 5, a 10, and a 15-second cooldown, or some numbers like that, it's all of a sudden now it's like just skill, and then you're like, okay, well, when do I actually get to DPS? So it kind of varies a bit, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it's also just resulting in a bunch of just spam all over your screen. And it gets so much worse at the high end, like to the point where, and this is part of what contributes to the, like, as you said, you just need to be able to survive it. And if you can't, and it results in these things where like, I died to something. There was effects everywhere, and now I'm dead. Something happened. But honestly, again, that's just because, okay, we're
I love
talking about
Mark's
3 or 4
accent.
mods. Well, you can get more than that.
Guys,
So,
I never sleep.
obviously,
I'm not
right? And
sleeping.
so all of a sudden now you've just got this barrage of onslaught of emissive, flashbangs going on your screen, and hopefully you survive. So it is a problem, but it's one of those things where it's really easy to look at the extreme cases and just be like, obviously we need to address this. And when we come up with some plan, and then you kind of go, well, it is affecting only the top end, so is it as important as these other fundamentals? But then you actually go, okay, let's look at this problem from not the top end perspective, and you're like, oh yeah, it's definitely still a problem. And so that's a good one to get highlighted, and then you can address it, and it turns out it just fixes it for everyone. So yeah, we're hoping to even do something about that this week specifically.
On the same topic of that is like, here's another one I just happened to notice recently as well, which was that like I was playing some maps and I realized, hang on a minute, I feel like in the last 10 maps I've run, every single one of them had a mod in it that caused curses to be going off. Every single one of them. And I'm like, so that just means that your entire experience of the map, even when you're not fighting anything, there's just like circles appearing on the screen all the time. I'm like, and so I asked someone about this, and they were like, oh yeah, the reason for that is because there's a bunch of curse mods, but because they're all weighted the same as all the normal mods, it means that like the overall weighting of just any curse, if you look at it that way, is very high.
Yeah.
And so the answer is just divide all the weightings of those curse mods so they're just less common, right? So now you don't have that thing, because like I feel like it shouldn't necessarily be that every freaking map you're running has got these circles appearing like that. So
Dude,
like there's just stuff like that. Like it's just there's just lots of little things like that, but I don't know why it's like it can be hard to notice that stuff unless you're really thinking about it. And like when you're going in with the mindset of like,
we said that 1,000 times.
The spam, like when you're actually playing, you have to, and it takes a little while of appreciating it as you go through of like, what is actually the cause here. Yeah, like there's a lot of things we can still do. So yeah, that is a bit of a kick that we're on right now, is the like try to reduce the spam a little bit. Ideally without sort of hurting
Thank
the
God.
top end cases where people want to make sure that
I literally made a video about temporal chains curse.
But I think that part of what also brought it to a head a little bit is that because the tree adds so much now, we have to be really careful with the with the stuff, because it can get out of hand pretty quick. So that's something that we have to care a lot about.
We've definitely had to reevaluate what our base levels are versus what our without like really going, okay, we just want everything to be, meh. Like we still want the excitement, you still want the thing where you can spec into all these things and create these crazy situations to happen. But yeah, with the tree being a lot larger and the Atlas Master system and all of this, it's like we've certainly had to reevaluate the base simply for that, just from a like, okay, if we had just kept the same base and added all that, then all the investment would end up having to be quite low, because you just can't have every single map being an absolute clusterfuck. So, reevaluating all of that is also helping, honestly, with that just onboarding into maps thing anyway, where you're not just like overwhelmed with like 8 things going on that you haven't even seen before. Like, what the fuck is even happening? Like, what's this purple thing here, and this blue thing here, and this green thing here, and this yellow thing here, and you're like, you don't even know what they are, because nothing's told you what they are necessarily. So, I think going back to your actual question you had, which was the onboarding for new players, even though it's weird to think about new players in the case of Endgame, but our hope is that they can get there. What I did see, and I've seen this with personal friends, even my brother and stuff, they got to Endgame. He's like, I don't know, I just ran a couple maps and now I'm done. I guess I'm finished. So I'm hoping that they get there and stick it out and actually have that goal. Don't get overwhelmed. Don't immediately run into brick walls, and can actually play through and finish the campaign, finish the end game as if it was just a continuance of the campaign, honestly. Like, there kind of doesn't necessarily need to be a like break in the story necessarily so much, where they can just be perceived as the same thing ultimately.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because one of the topics we wanted to cover in this interview was about the Fortress and Endgame Atlas. And one of the initial questions we had there is to talk about the Fortress. You talk about onboarding people to the Endgame, right? And the Fortress itself, it has its areas inside the Fortress. They're sort of pre-juiced, and the Fortress is required for gaining your Atlas passive points, and also has some Pinnacle bosses in it. Like, is this area what you envision players to head to first when they go out there, clear it out in its entirety, then go out to engage with league mechanics? Or is it intended to be your sort of first endgame focused type of content, but you can deviate away from it? And the follow-up to this would be, is this supposed to be an extension of the campaign to be sort of a tutorial of the endgame before people are expected to go to the Infinite Atlas?
Well, there's a few things going on here. So number one is I do expect that the Fortress is going to be the first in-game system that people engage with. It doesn't have to be, but I think that it will be. And that's seen by the fact that it's the first quest we give you, and it's kind of like the largest visible thing going on, right? So the very first thing you get is like there's a tower that pops out, and Duyani's like, hey, go do that. And that's like 3 maps away, right? So like it's guaranteed the tower is the 3rd map that you do, assuming that you head in that direction. And then it's like 3 or maybe 4 maps more than that until you get into the Fortress. So like it's pretty, you know, like we're onboarding you pretty easily into that thing. So I suspect a lot of people do that. And yes, the pre-juicing is definitely a nice thing, because the nice thing we get to do there, by the way, is that so in the Fortress, like it's not most of the maps, but it's like a very large percentage of them, because you can pick where you go. Like you effectively get like pre-juiced maps. But the nice thing is it's like 1 mechanic at a time. Like when you get those mechanics in those maps, it's like because it's at the start, you know, you have an allocated Atlas point, so it's not happening all the time. You get a situation, you get to experience the feeling of like, okay, here's what it would be like if I like had a bunch of wisps, and here's what it would be like if I had a bunch of strongbox, and that kind of thing. You get to sort of experience that right away. But yeah, as I said, 1 at a time. And then as you go through the Fortress, you're obviously adding more of that content that once you've experienced it to your maps, you get to kind of like juice it more yourself. And so by the time you're done with the Fortress, you know, you're going to have like, you know, the not necessarily, probably not the full Atlas tree, because I don't think that you're going to just grind out every single map in the Fortress. I expect the much more likely situation is that you pick a path through the Fortress that gets you to the quest goals. You allocate, I don't know what it would be. Like, what do you reckon the percentage of the tree you'd probably allocate, Mark? And by the time you've leveled up and everything, it might be like 1/3 of it or something, like maybe. Like something along those lines, you probably get like a 1/3 of it as you make your way to
if you're a
maybe
non-native English speaker, do you find it hard to listen to Jonathan? Like, can you hear every word that he says?
Half was more.
I can hear it
for sure.
But can you hear it?
Like sort of
if you're not non-native
third,
English
something
speaker,
like that of the tree, before we get to that. And so by the time you got to that point, you know, you're sort of ready to be able to go and do.
Okay, a lot of you,
and I sort of suspect that'll be like most people's general experience, and that's not supposed to take too long. It's supposed to be, you know, like a relatively like achievable goal. And yes, it is effectively tutorializing the endgame as well, because then you've got the quest version of the Pinnacle, you know, like you know the which is hard, don't get me wrong, it's not easy, but like definitely not, but it's like, you know, something that you would expect someone to be able to do if they're, you know, taking it somewhat reasonably. So yeah, like it is something that probably I'd expect to do. Now you can go and do the other quest lines if you want, but the one thing you will run into is that you're not allowed to do I believe the lieutenants, whatever this kind of like the pre-pinnacle is before you've got to map tier. It's 11, I believe, Mark. Is that correct? Like map tier 11 is what you have to do the lieutenants at?
Generally 14.
14. Yes, that's right. So you map to 14. So what that means is that if you do that as your first one, and you're a new player, so you don't know how to go through the tiers quickly, it's possible that you'd run into that bottleneck at some point if you just did one of the league trees first, and then have to sort of tear up before you went on. Whereas if you do the Fortress first, you're obviously going to be T16, or T15 probably, I suppose, if you're not doing the corrupted stuff, and so therefore you're going to have the maps that you need to be able to do those other ones like all the way to the end very quickly. So yeah, I'd expect most people to do Fortress first, in most cases.
Part of the reason for that T14 thing, because I suspect it'll come up and people might be like, why is this gated behind a level? Like, why is it? Like, let me just do it. Is that we don't want the pinnacles. So obviously, there's a quest version and a non-quest version, right? The non-quest is harder. That's what you do afterwards. Drops better loot, right? That's the quest version, where it still drops loot. It's not just given nothing. It is still a fixed level, and we wanted all the pinnacles to be at the pinnacle, right? Around tier 15, tier 16 difficulty, right? So you'll generally find they're about level 79, whereas the farm ones are like level 82. Now that doesn't mean a lot, but it's just, obviously item level of drops, and then obviously, whatever custom difficulty we want to do at those level thresholds. However, because often the pinnacles are not using traditional waystones, as in they don't have a tier on them. We have to gate the thing directly before them to be the difficulty that is the closest. Like, for example, let's say you got to tier 11 maps, you killed, say, Tulanesh, and then you got the Twisted Domain key, and so tier 11, and then you're jumping to level 79. Like, the difficulty jump is just going to be insane. And so it's like, well, I'd rather gate that boss to be literally just one step before the Twisted Domain, so that if you do it, you earn the key, you're probably ready to do it. Like, you don't have to like now go and waste your key and go, okay, that was impossible. What the hell was that? So people will often probably run into this block, but it is important that when they kill those penultimate bosses, that they are probably ready then. That is their proving grounds to say, okay, you can try the pinnacle now. And if we have those be too early, yeah, people are just going to be like, okay, what the hell? This difficulty jump is out of control. And then they'll fail. They have to go do a bunch of stuff. It'll feel bad. Or they might just be like, nice balance, thumbs down. I think that the lesser evil is definitely to have the gate. There are a few other ways to do this. But the other thing I didn't want to do is have it that let's say you did them in a different order. Like let's say it was tier 11, as we said, the restriction on Tulanesh. If you then, and let's say Twisted Domain was T12 difficulty instead of the 14 and 15 that I have them at. If you did it breach first and did it naturally, it'd probably feel fine. Now, if you go and do the whole fortress, you get all the way to T15, you kill the Arbiter, you do that whole quest line, and then you go and do breach. Well, now it's just tier 11 and tier 12, and you're going to be like, well, that was a joke. What the hell was that? And so that also doesn't feel good. And then the farm version's obviously high level. And so I think that's also bad as well. So it's just giving a bit of background as to why I want to make sure the penultimates are T14 and the ultimates are around, and the quest ultimates are 15, and then the farm ones are a few levels higher. And there are, I understand there's a few different things you could do here. You could be like, oh, as you complete each, the other ones level up. And as there's all this kind of stuff, but I don't really love doing that. I think it's quite fun to just get to that boss. You get to literally the pre-capstone of the league, and it's like, all right, now get to tier 14, and you're like, oh shit, yeah, I'm going to go do that. When I come back, I'm going to come back and mess it up and hopefully get my loot, or whatever, or just fail, whatever the case is. But hopefully you get to kill it and get your loot. But yeah, I don't know. It worked out, but yeah, I understand. It's been a bit of a conversation in the office where people have wanted it one way over the other and been a bit back and forth about it, and had the levels based on the distance from the start and all kinds. And I just think that what we've landed on is certainly the best situation we have of all.
I completely agree with Mark.
Question that's going to come up. So I thought clarifying.
Completely agree with Mark.
Useful.
Did you guys do any changes to the earlier levels of the waystones? Because I know in one video, there was a video I was watching where a guy was mapping out and saying the earlier tiers of the waystones are higher levels now, etc. How do you feel about the earlier level curve of the waystones? Has that been fundamentally changed though, or are you guys okay with the positioning of it currently?
As in level 65, then 6 and 7, then 8?
Yeah, exactly.
Currently the same.
There were some changes to monster effectiveness that happened.
Isn't that juicing, though?
Again, we've done balance all over the place. So it's what do the numbers even mean is kind of a question in itself, in general, I think a common problem people had is that the difficulty difference between the maps wasn't significant enough. And so it was you just kind of just climb and climb and climb.
Right. Yeah.
We've done some changes around that. We went very extreme at the start of this development cycle. and we've now come back on it substantially. Not to say there isn't still a larger difference than what's currently on live. So yes, the difference between a T1 and 15 on live is less than the difference that will be in 050. As in it gets harder as you climb the progression. That being said, a lot of that was also done through, because we've changed what the map mods give as well. So they have, I can't remember what the exact bonuses are now, but for example, a subset of the mods do grant effectiveness. So, quant and life and XP. And then, but what we tried to do is that every single mod on a map was something you actually were like, oh yeah, okay, this is rewarding, I want this. Whereas there were some that were a bit hit and miss before, for sure. So we've tried to do that, and so we've changed some of the outcomes given. But just now, by rolling mods on maps, you'll notice that things, because of the effectiveness, for example, that monsters can get harder, but at least then you can kind of control it, which is better than just, okay, we've moved the brick wall from here to here or whatever. It's like not a great change that we made, but yeah, I would say it's not too far off what it was at a baseline level. But again, that's where also then ideally, when we do have things like difficulty curves like that, it's something that's in the player's control, not like, otherwise, again, like let's say Jonathan's build here, he's like, okay, I'm struggling in very early waystones, but and I raised the question to him, I was like, okay, but let's say we did this change here. It sounds good. You'll get to your tier 3 or 4, maybe 5 maps, but then you're going to hit a wall there as well, right? So it's about making sure that we do changes that aren't just like, okay, you're going to quit 30 minutes later instead. Or you'll quit the next day instead of the day before. Technically that's better, I guess, but it's still bad. So, but it's, I know that there's a lot of people who really wanted it to be that the difference in difficulty in tiers is quite significant. There's a bunch of people who don't necessarily. We tried it. It wasn't good. So having it more as you get more of the tree, more multi-choice, you get the Atlas Masters, and that being fully agency controlled is definitely a better world than just inherently every tier is significantly harder than the last, or some sort of more extreme jump like that. So anyway, let's try it and test it.
Let's talk about the Atlas Masters then, because I'm very curious. There's 2 fundamental changes with the Atlas tree currently coming up in 0.5, one of which is you can basically max out the entirety of the tree. I know there's notables you can change, and that's kind of how you're doing the player agency on the Atlas tree, but also the Atlas Masters are the other fundamentally new, and you call them ascendancy classes for the Atlas tree, which is kind of an interesting way to put it. So what are the Masters enabling you to be able to do that was something you couldn't be able to put on the tree? Why Atlas Masters, and what is that going to help you with?
So there's a couple of things going on here. So I think one of the things that's really important to talk about with that is that why the old tree was a concern. So effectively, the old tree wasn't allowed to have anything on it that could affect content that you could see that you were going to get in advance. And the reason for that is because you'd just respec before you do it, and then be having to respec all the time. And we wanted to get to a situation where, you didn't feel like you needed to make those changes all the time. And yeah, the only way we'd had to do it before was to effectively water down the bonuses we could give. And then originally what we were saying is that we want to have it so that the customization that there is doesn't require so much cognitive overload in terms of doing it. And what I mean by that is okay, so the important thing to respec was various more sort of keystone-y type things. There's a bunch of other bonuses, but the stuff that kind of defines what is interesting about what you're doing is really more about those keystone things. So if we can bring all those key choices together in one place, it's going to feel a lot less threatening when you want to change them. And so now you've got effectively a nice little menu on the side of the thing of what one of these do you want to be playing under. And then after that, we were okay, we want to do some kind of thing where in PoE 1, you've got the 3 specs that you can do for your Atlas tree. And I've never kind of liked that because I don't know, how would I just describe why I don't sort of like that kind of stuff? It's it feels like it's adding even more complexity. So then I was okay, is there a way that we can get the idea of having 3 specs, but like not have it feel like something that feels like it adds complexity, but instead make it feel thematic and cool. And so then the idea of like, well, what if each spec was like a character, and they're like, like this is the stuff that they're doing, and then it feels like when you're changing between them that you've got it's just a more interesting and sort of more thematic way of achieving something like that. And I think that's actually worked pretty well. And then, funnily enough, it kind of ended up feeling a little bit like what we have in PoE1. I can't remember what the name of it's called, but the way that you can select a thing when you run a map. I think, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, like it just has a sort of a cool feel to it like that. And because you're allowed to select between these things like that, then we can have bonuses that you would want to change between before you run a map, because you can effectively just have like, okay, this is when I'm running this content, this is the master that I'm using. When I'm running that content, this is the master that I'm using, and you kind of like decide those kind of choices up front, and then it's just like one click to change between them. So now then, yeah, we put all those bonuses of like, and even in this case, we're even experimenting with having bonuses that are going to apply to the league that we're actually running right now. So there are bonuses that apply to the Runes of Alder on there. And like we feel like it's okay to do that when it's like the sort of separate thing that's on the these masters, where we didn't feel like we were comfortable doing that on the Atlas tree before. So yeah, I don't know. Like it's a different concept of delivery that allows us to do a certain thing. And in this case, the particular thing that it is yeah, like content that responds to like things that respond to things that you can see that are going to happen. So like I see that I'm going to run this type of map, it's going to have this type of content, and I select this master, which is going to synergize with that.
The league mechanic trees, when I was watching the review, one bit of confusion, like I know I at least myself was confused about this, so I was hoping some clarity. Are you actually able to max out the entirety of each one of the league trees? Okay, so what was the decision behind we wanted to make it where you max out the trees and entirely also in the league mechanic portion of it?
So it's the same exact argument for the regular tree, right? Like it's we just think that it's important that for the types of bonuses that we can do. Sure. It means that we can do a bonus like, now when you kill this boss, it's going to have these additional, these additional features or drops, something like that. There's like stuff like that you just wouldn't be able to do normally, because you'd be like, okay, well, I'm not going to have that allocated when I'm doing this content because I instead have this other thing. If you allocate all of them, we could just do those types of bonuses, and I think it just makes them more interesting. But yeah, so then once again, you've got the multi-choice nodes that are there to control the like, do I want to have this league be like this or like that? The multi-choice nodes effectively serve as those decision points.
For example, there, by the way, like you can have a node that specifically enhances the difficulty and or drops of the Pinnacle boss for that league. You can have one that applies to the lieutenant. You can have, and so yes, before obviously you'd have to then go, I'm about to do the Pinnacle boss, or you save up a bunch of keys and then you allocate those nodes and then run them all, and then you unallocate those nodes when you go back to farming. So even with that, but the different variety of bonuses we're allowed to have invested into, it feels pretty good. It feels pretty awesome where you can be like, okay, I mean, there is the sense of ordering as you're like filling in the tree where you're like, okay, am I going to invest in this now or this later? Obviously, you're generally not going to invest in the Pinnacle boss when you're like, first starting out. Not that it's at the start of the tree anyway. And so, yeah, you're generally going to want to spec into that stuff later regardless. And often in those cases, it's even blocked behind killing the Pinnacle boss to start with, where it's like, okay, I can't allocate these until I kill the Pinnacle for the first time. And then you can go and fill them in, and then when you do the farm, you can get the full loot. But it does create this just like really cool sense of progression of like you're just like really evolving the loot, and there kind of isn't really a wrong choice. You're not like so scared about whether or not you're allocating A or B and whether or not it's going to be the right thing. And so you can just do it with a lot more freedom, a lot less like fear of missing out of something. You can, but there's still a little bit of that like thinking about the choice and the ordering and which way you're getting it, but it just feels so much less complicated and something you can just fuck up. Of course, that raised the concern, and Jonathan mentioned it, where you then lose your build per se. And this is something we've talked about a little bit, but like this is where the Atlas Master circles in. It's like, we need a system that is your build, but we need that to not be like 150 passives, it needs to be something quite clean like an Ascendancy class, hence kind of Atlas class. It's like, here's your end points you get on a quite small tree, and it's effectively like, okay, as he said, is boiling down the actual key decisions of how things behave, like meta level decisions, as opposed to just like X% increased something. It's just like a little bit of thing. It's like very game changing, like, enables a mechanic or disables another, gives you, as I said, things that reduce the number of revives you have, but increase the loot. And it's like, oh, do I want to risk that? It's like much more meaningful decisions all over the Atlas Masters. And because we can have multiple, because you can turn them off and enable them at will, and because it's not like just giant tree of overwhelmingness, it's quite easy to go, okay, I understand what this is going to do. I understand I can try it. I can just turn it off. I don't need to have like multiple respec systems in order to do it, be it gold or some orb. And then I can just go and change it. And then maybe when I'm ready later, I'll turn it on again. But the other thing it allows, and I like this, which is, of course, it allows us to make new ones in the future. If we have new characters and new Atlas Masters, maybe we sub one out, add another, you never know how these things go. Maybe we do a thing where we, move what's on class A onto class B and some of B onto C, and, you create different combinations of the classes and what they specialize in. Obviously still remaining thematic, because that's a thing that we want to stay bound to. And so there's a lot more like flexibility here in terms of changing, removing, adding, doing a bunch of like cool stuff with just like creating new builds where you can create an entire new in-game meta just by mixing up those classes. And you haven't had to change this entire 600-point Atlas passive tree kind of level grade thing where you're like, okay, we can create so many new metas with like five changes, and that's it. You just move this here, this here, this here, this here, this here, and it's like, oh, entire in-game meta changed. Now, that's if we want to do that. We don't have to, but that can be a cool level of shake-up that keeps in-game feeling way fresher and whatnot, and we haven't had to add an entire new system to do it. So, yeah.
Yeah, on the topic of in-game meta and stuff like that, and the player agency control of the not just the Atlas Masters, but also the multi-choice nodes we have on the Atlas tree itself, is something you brought up. I believe it was you, Mark, on the Q&A with CGD. Was that something that you don't have in PoE 2, but you do have in PoE 1, is the ability to respond to market changes by targeting different types of drops. So like this is kind of in the topic of combating inflation, which has been mentioned, as well as price stabilization, where you can make those choices to, hey, this is lacking a supply in the market or whatever. And then you can choose to say, well, I'm going to do that farm. And then maybe the market changes. And now the next mechanic is going to be the most lucrative, if you will. And one of the questions is this one of your implementation to help combat your issues with rarity affecting currency and combating inflation in general? Or what's the take here?
It is 100% good at that. And, go for it, Jonathan.
Well, I was going to basically say exactly that, right? Like we are trying to make it so that not only do you have things with the Atlas Masters, but you've also got things with the like which league you're focusing on. Like Ritual now being a much bigger source of uniques, for example. Yeah, if like you think, like we do want the idea that if things are in the market are off in a certain way, you feel like you can profit. Going to doing a different league, being a thing that matters more is, I think, pretty important. So that was an explicit goal. Like let's try and make it so that we can get that. Now I don't know whether that's going to have a huge effect or not, but it was one of the things we noticed that was different about PoE 1 versus 2 when we were talking about this kind of stuff. So we thought like, hey, let's add that ability a little bit more.
But like to go further into that again with the response and player agency side, and I don't actually know if we made this. It was in one of my mini spreadsheets at some point. But like, let's just say Ritual gives uniques, which yes, we've made that change. And let's just say that there was a master who had somehow an occult, or let's say a multi-choice, and it just said all the uniques offered by Ritual are now currency. And you could, with a click of a button, go click, all right, now I run Rituals and I'm just getting currency instead of uniques. Not to say that's necessarily a thing, I can't remember. But that's the level of thing where it's like, well, why not allow someone to change that? Now, one might be quantifiably better than the other, but that's somewhat market dependent and somewhat what you need for your gear, for your build, your character, and whatnot. But that is a level of a literal just click one button, click another button. Like if that's a thing you want to do, that we will now be able to do with this, where you can completely transform what you're farming by just the click of a button. And you can do that for many of the different leagues where you're like, okay, well, I want to target this instead of that, or I want to specifically turn off A and B because C gives more currency. or I want to, I'm farming more bosses, so I want to make the bosses do this at the cost of something else. There's just all kinds of different things that you can do, and it's so much more approachable and simple, which is awesome. So I do expect that to happen, by the way. I do expect people to be, those who care about it, to be dynamically responding their builds to the economy, which I know a lot of people care about, myself included, right? That's what you're going to do. So what you have as a day one build might not be your day two build, might not be your day three build, entirely just due to I want to make the most amount of wealth from an economical standpoint, as opposed to necessarily like what's best for your character, because I understand getting wealthy is often what's best for your character. So, it will happen, almost certainly. And it's not going to take a whole bunch of gold and unshaping orbs and everything to do it. So that's good.
That's a good sign.
I know you guys put, I think it was in the patch notes, you guys said you put like Exceptionos and Fracturing Orbs are on the Atlas tree now as well, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
correct.
Sort of one more example of it.
That can be seen as taking something away, which obviously it is to some degree. But what it's also allowing you to do is be exposed to the fact that it exists at all, which is kind of cool, because you can see the node, you can go, what the hell is that? And you can click the keyword and you're like, oh, I see what this is. That's cool.
So you're like, tutorial, which is quite cool. Like you now know those mechanics exist because the tree tells you about them.
Mm-hmm.
I think about that angle. Okay, one more question about the Atlas, and we'll move on and talk about the League mechanic. Destructive play is like kind of one of my favorite ways to farm in PoE1, right? And you were talking about the more focus on unique map bosses. It's not really a current strategy in 0.5. Like you're not really going and targeting down map bosses currently. Is this something you expect? I've seen you've been giving love to unique map bosses, farming strategy so far, the way from what we've seen on the Atlas tree. So are you guys trying to make that into a potential strategy?
Do ritual, DM. You got all the map bosses in there.
It should to some degree, for sure. I mean, it depends if you think of it as the map boss versus, say, I would say an example is the summoning circles, being able to invest in that and do stuff with that is a way of getting more
ritual
boss
DM,
fights.
ritual.
I understand it's not the map boss. There are definitely ways to... Well, I guess you got the Overseer's Tablet, of course, which is a way of trying to be more boss-centric. I get it's not quite the same as what you're mentioning, which is more just like fighting a bunch of ruckus at the same time. But as something that we're trying... There's a little bit of like, okay, and Jonathan said this to me literally today, which is that fighting multiple bosses at once is almost always worse than fighting one at a time. Like, you just lose that cohesion, you lose that combat feel. Now, you can have a twin to fight that is designed and they're a bit tag teamy and all that, but it often isn't good to just spawn a bunch of bosses on you all at the same time, because it just implies, it's one of that same thing again, where now you just have to have the defenses to not insta-die because you can't tell what's happening. So adding more bosses is something that Summoning Circle mechanic tries to do, and there are other ways to do that for sure. There's like a new type of delirium mirror that spawns a cloned boss from a map. So like, we want to definitely spawn more bosses, but I don't want to just spawn like 6 bosses in a room all together and just let you deal with it.
But that's exactly what Ritual is doing. It's spawning 5 bosses on top of each other.
But in the Rite of the Nameless, we do offset them from spawning. Like, they don't all just suddenly spawn to start.
It's still staggered.
They spawn. They're not like one at a time, but they do stagger so that like you've got time to potentially kill the boss first, and then before the next one. And so ideally, it's kind of like like it's a bit of it's a tough fight, but you're not it's not just like 5 bosses enter a room with you.
That being said, we have a bit of work to still do on getting ritual combat to be a bit better, right? Like it is one of the things, like, I mean, obviously getting that many monsters in a bit of a claustrophobic situation can just be a bit of a mess. And so that's still something we are going to work on, is getting that combat to be a bit better as well, just as a thing to hopefully do between 050 and release. But yes, in that context, definitely staggering them is the play, because yes, what the hell is fighting 5 bosses in, not now just 5 bosses in the boss arena, you're talking about 5 bosses in this little circle with a bunch of rat tornadoes or something going around. You have no idea what's going on. So we'll try and make that as clean as possible.
All right, well, let's talk about the Runes of Aldor then, this season's League mechanic. Now, one of the major sticking out points is obviously Runic Ward. I don't think many people saw that one coming. That was a bit of a surprise when I saw that one. So what was the thought process of coming to the conclusion that, okay, we need another defensive of some sort, and this time we're going to put it under life? Like, that's pretty unique. So how'd you come to that point?
I think it maybe started... Did it start with the skills first or the ward first? I can't actually remember which way around it was, but I feel like it might have been the skills. And we were talking about, like, what resource could we consume... I mean, it came
Adding
together in one
another
conversation, but I'm trying to
resource.
remember exactly like which way around it was. But the skills and the runic ward were definitely designed together, like in terms of what that. Like we sort of knew that we wanted something. So okay, for a while we've wanted to have. It's like you start with having it so that all of the skills are limited to weapon types, but then after that you then break the rule and actually have the stuff that goes between the weapon types. And so we knew for a while we wanted to have skills that can work across, so you can do some interesting stuff, and it like expands the universe of what builds are possible by quite a lot. So it was just a question of like, what can the restriction be so that it's like to make it so that there's something there that we can have that still sort of limits it. Because we were talking about how if we're doing skills like this, we didn't believe that something like mana would actually necessarily work for the type of skills that we want to do, where it's like sort of unrestricted like that. So then we're like, okay, if we've got another resource and like we don't really want to do life, and then we talked about like, do we make it like Vile skills where you've got like, the soul thing? We kind of didn't like that either. And I'm not sure exactly how we ended up with Runic Ward as the description, but I did like the fact that you've got something that's a hybrid defense and offense, and you can kind of scale that depending on what you do. So yeah, that it ended up pretty well, and I'm enjoying playing with it as well. Like I do now, especially that there's a proper sound when you run into it, like you do know that it's saving you. So that's been pretty nice. So I'm a big fan of that. But ultimately, yeah, it came from the skills first, I believe, of like you wanted to have a new resource that can power something like that.
They wanted to have a new generator spender
conversation, but yeah, we started with like, well, PoE1 has ward, and we're like talking about things that we could do that are of Kalgurin theming, and we ended up going. It was just like, we're not really satisfied with how it works. Like fundamentally, it's like very niche. It's very endgame. It relies on all these unique mechanics to actually be good, and we need something that's fundamental to the campaign here. Something that can help everyone. And then we went through all life, as we do, we just have our meetings of design rants, and we went through many iterations and somehow ended up with what we have. And I think it is a significant upgrade over what, if we had just copy pasted from what was in PoE1 there, it would have not been anywhere near as good. So it's quite satisfied with how that ended up. But it is always hard to forget these frantic conversations we have where we're just like, it's honestly like sometimes it's 30 minutes and you have like 500 iterations, and sometimes it's several hours and you have like 3 iterations. But easier to remember those ones. This was one of those short and fast, snappy, ruckus conversations for sure that ended up quite satisfying.
I am hoping that people find use for runic ward skills and like whatever build that they're doing. Like I think that probably will be the case. Like we've made quite a few. There's quite a few ones that are general enough as well, and a surprising number of minion ones. So Ghazi will be happy to hear about that, I guess. But yeah, there's quite a bit going on there. The one I'm using on my current build is like honestly pretty fun. It looks simple. It's this thing where you called repulsion, where you it actually, I think when we did the live stream, it was a mark, but then we decided that we liked it as a curse better. So it's a curse that you apply to the monsters, and when they take a bit of damage, the curse gets removed and it does an explosion that pushes all the monsters away. And if you've got large monster density and you use it on a pack, like the monsters just get absolutely like when they just spread everywhere. Like it's quite fun. So I'm enjoying that one, and hopefully we don't need to nerf it because I'm enjoying it. But that's the one that I'm using at the moment. But yeah, there's quite a lot of interesting ones. And I suspect that what I'm hoping is that there might be some like ward only builds even at Endgame, which I think will be interesting. Like we'll try and build one in the office, and maybe we'll even do a video on it to see if we can do like a ward only character just to see how that goes. But the skills are primarily designed to be used as sort of like extra things that you can use on your other builds as well.
One question about the league mechanic itself is I was re-listening to the Ziggy D Q&A while I was prepping, and Mark, you said that you thought you could get up to 22 rare mob modifiers potentially when paired with the expedition when doing the Rune of Aldor, right? So one of my questions for you is this kind of intended to be a strategy, sort of like, I don't know, like the Alva Temple, for instance, where it's like, okay, you can farm it for specifically what the drops are, but also like it can be a juicing mechanism where we're building this. So another way to play it is you do this actually just to juice the rare mobs themselves, and you're actually farming the mobs for the drops with by adding more and more modifiers on.
That was the intention, yes, that both are a viable option. Now, the example I gave there is obviously the extreme.
Of course. Yeah.
Like, you're not going to have that happen every time, for sure. But I do want it to be a strategy, for sure, especially now that the mods don't display all vertically down the screen. Those specific mods don't. There's just like a little line of runes under the monster's life bars. And, yeah, but my hope is that there is a strategy at Endgame. Obviously, it's a relatively high-end strategy, where once you are using logbooks and doing those grand expeditions, as we've called them. I don't know if there's an official name yet, but that's what I'll keep, the big old expeditions, that you are thinking, okay, on some of the remnants, you're like, okay, I want this chase reward. And on others where you're like, nah, I don't really care too much about, this and that. Like, I think I can push the monsters to be more valuable than the things that are offered by them. That you're actually thinking, okay, I'm going to try and pick the highest variety of different runes possible so that you pass them along and try and get as many remnants as possible in the dynamite chain. And then you're just like, okay, obviously each one then passes them on. So you're going to get every monster. The first one will be like, okay, pretty standard reward. Second one a bit more. Third one a bit more. Fourth one a bit more. It's like, how long can this dynamite chain go? How many remnants can I get in it? And then you get to the point where you're just like, all right, like, what am I actually even fighting now? That's the hope, is that there are still people. And again, because you can control what the mods are, what the rewards are, what the where the bombs are, the order of them, you can control the difficulty and rewards entirely as you please. One other thing we've changed with expeditions, by the way, which I think has been a significant upgrade, though a semi-controversial internal one, but
I think it's way better. I think it's way
the same way, which is when you set a dynamite, you got your dynamite chain. When the first one goes off, you have to kill a certain number of the monsters before the dynamite will continue. So what would often happen is that a fast build, when doing the logbooks were before, or expeditions, you could just kill as you're going. And what some people did is they'll just detonate the entire chain and then just like clear backwards almost. And what some people would do is just clear with it, but effectively now they're not even seeing the bombs. Like the bombs have all detonated off screen and they're just following the chain of minimap icons, clearing everything. Yeah. So now, like, it's like finish the encounter, next bomb goes off, finish the encounter, next bomb goes off, finish the encounter, next bomb. So you're actually following it, seeing the detonation, seeing what's emerging, doing the fight, and you're following along. It just feels so much smoother. Though I know that there's
way more, by the way, like it's way better.
I agree. I think it's significantly better, but I know it immediately had people going, but I like to just detonate the whole thing and then just wait ages and then clear it all. Going backwards or whatever, and I was like, "Wow, too bad," because the pros outweigh the cons here, IMO. Mm-hmm. But it is just significantly better.
One couple other changes I noticed was 10 runes instead of 8 in the patch notes. Right? I think the reveal said it was like 8 cap, and I think in the patch notes it said it was upwards of 10.
I think the reason for that is because there's a that might have been me accidentally disclosing a hidden thing that was supposed to be a hidden thing, about how there's like a secret thing that you can get up to 10. I think I might have accidentally said that. Like, I think the normal limit is 8.
Okay.
There's like a bespoke 10 length and 9 length one. They're not like traditional. It's something that when you find, you're gonna be like, what the fuck is this kind of thing?
Yeah. So there's like. Yeah, that was probably just my bad, just like looking at the table and being like, okay, here's the maximum one being 10. Like, there's probably a few things I accidentally disclosed in the patch notes that we were intended
So does Jonathan type the patch notes?
We'll see.
How do you...
By all means, we don't mind.
Yeah, spoil it here. How do you actually decide what you want to like leak or show in the review and what you don't? Like, I mean, that's got to be kind of a hard decision on, you want to keep enough hype going, right? Like, you want people to know some stuff's coming, be excited. Like, you got to tease Mageblood's coming. You can't tease what it is, right? So, like, how do you decide what makes the cut on the teaser and what you want to be, like, discovered, like, the hidden ascendancies, for instance, like you did with Abyssal Lich?
I don't know really. It's sort of hard to decide, but like there are certain things. Well, okay, like a random example is like not to, like in the patch notes we said there are 3 barracks rings. People are going to make some assumptions about what that might mean. Like there are things like that we're just like this, like in some ways, like it can be obvious to people what the hidden things are, but that can be its own form of excitement because now you're going to be asking, well, how does that work? What do you do? And the way that that does work is quite hidden. So we'll have to see whether people do that. I know Jeff actually was saying to me, he's like, as a player, I would never find this. So hopefully people do end up discovering that. But all it takes is one, and then everyone will know. So there are secrets like that around. But yeah, I don't know. It just like we want to make sure that there's just enough things where it feels like people have found something. And actually, there's that other whole system we didn't tell people about. Oh, I'm not even going to mention it. No, screw it. Because there's a whole bunch of like, I would say there's more like. I would say there's more like.
I don't even know what he's talking about.
No, you do know what I'm talking about. The one that's the most ridiculous.
You have to tell me afterwards because obviously
the one that's the most ridiculous.
Why wait?
The one that's the most
there are
ridiculous.
surprises that we want to have. But anyway, the thing is, we actually got enough hidden surprises on this patch that I feel like it's kind of okay to disclose a lot of things because there's quite a lot more of them. Like I feel like there's probably more hidden, random, weird stuff in this patch than we've probably ever done. I don't know if you'd agree with that, Matt, but it seems like it to me.
It should be. I'm a huge advocate for pushing for and I just declare it at the start. I'm like, this is a thing no one's allowed to know about, and then I just hope that no one says anything.
It's easy to make mistakes though because people don't know what stuff's going to be hidden, and so I might just randomly, blunder into things and like.
There are other things where we're like, okay, but is it just going to get data mined in minute 0 anyway, and thus people?
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like, oh, maybe even that in itself is exciting because people don't know if what's data mined is actually enabled or not.
Yeah,
So you start adding bait and you put in little things that are just like, to intentionally make people feel the sense of mystery. So even if it is a thing that will get data mined, it doesn't necessarily mean it's there. If it's like, there are things that are unintentional. Like I don't know if I don't know if the patch notes actually ended up with this, but all of the, for example, have we disclosed all of the hidden anoints? Like we expressed some. We're like, here's some that you get from the.
We didn't list them. We didn't. Yeah, we didn't list them. We
went over some in the live stream and the presentation, and we went over here's a few examples. But then there's a whole bunch undiscovered. And so it's like, I wouldn't say that's a secret. It's just like we want people to discover stuff. We want some people. And then there's the stuff like the actual secrets where we're just like, nah, good luck finding this. And we look forward to day 29 where someone figures this out or something. I want some sense of discovery over the league that's more than just like, what is your build and what is the meta? Like stuff that's actually in-world discoverable things. And yeah, sometimes it gets figured out in like an hour and you're like, oh well, whatever. Still, that's something. But
it's funny that you mentioned this with the bait thing because I'm still looking at the data mine of Demon Magus and just waiting for something to happen. Like oh yeah, you're laughing. I'm sitting here with your balls.
No, it was a real thing. It's not.
It was.
It is a.
I did have a quick. Sorry.
It will be a real thing one day. It wasn't intended to.
Okay. I'm just trying not to go off on my notorious 15-minute minion rant here after Jonathan's comment earlier. I did have a curiosity about the league mechanic, which kind of weaves into the history of GGG. You guys have never shied away from trying out-of-the-box crazy things, roguelike things like Sekima, Sanctum, Auto Battlers, Todia, DM's favorite TD Blight. And we saw a meteor crashing on the Infinite Atlas. Utilizing the Infinite Atlas for the immersion of a meteor crashing down, it looks really cool. This small little snippet looks fantastic. And then the question I have for this is the idea of changing /and/or terraforming the Atlas something that you'll want to explore further in future updates or even leagues moving forward?
I definitely think that we're going to do more of that for sure. I mean, Doyani does have, as one of the Atlas Masters, does have a light terraforming ability. He's got the ability to change one biome into another. Like as part of his Atlas Master abilities.
Okay.
All right.
It's not completely controllable. You can't just make the whole world a desert, but like he does have some light ability to do that, and so there's things like that we can that we can do. But yeah, that actually matters quite a lot with the new Atlas tree because the new Atlas tree has a bunch of things that are biome specific. Like this is a thing that happens in forest, and this is a thing that happens in deserts. So then, and there's also the ability to say like this biome behaves as this other biome in addition, stuff like that, like with multi-choice stuff. And so there's like things like that going on that like make the biomes matter more. And then the ability for Diani to then be able to do some terraforming means that there's some strats there ideally that you could do with him. But yeah,
but I mean, yeah, like the imagination can immediately run wild. It's like, you know, less hypothetical. You know, not this has not been discussed before, but it's like, okay, what does it look like for blight using for, you know, whatever blight ends up being in whatever world at some point in time? But like, okay, why not have actual blighted growths that appear on the atlas and start growing and start like overrunning things? And why not have I don't know, things invading from here, and you know, you can do anything, right? I mean, the imagination can run wild.
We've got the breach domains appearing on the Atlas now. That's not like something that happens in front of you, but I mean, the fog bank thing and delirium, the delirious like area, that's kind of, this sort of feels a little bit like it as well, where like the Atlas gets transformed, you know, this event happens and that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, yeah, we're absolutely going to do. Like, we want every league to have more mechanics that happen on the Atlas. Like, that is an explicit thing of like every league should at least have something that interacts with the Atlas in a more interesting way.
Because like my mind went completely off when I saw that. I was like, they're probably gonna do something like Catan League or Risk play, where we're like pushing out settlements. Now we're playing RTS on the Infinite Atlas. That's where my mind went, and I was like, I can't wait for that.
Well, I do have a discussion I need to have with Mark actually about some 1.0 league ideas. So we'll see how we go with that.
And you guys are adding so much, like such scale of content here. Like you're adding tons of crafting, for instance. You're just all of the different changes to the Atlas Masters, like you're talking about the terraforming Atlas. How much of it is it when you're creating something, you're preemptively looking at it and being like, oh, well, this could be a problem. Like this would make crafting too strong. And like how much of this is like emergent gameplay, which we're just going to put it out into the wild and like see what the players do with it. And then we'll do changes after. Like what's the balance like?
Well, so we try to think of everything we can, but we also assume that there will be a million things we didn't think of. So it's kind of like, it is really both of those things. But yeah, we do try as hard as we can to try and understand the interactions. But yes, there's just a lot of inherent risk the moment that you add all sorts of stuff like this, that you just do get something that you didn't expect. So yeah, you just assume that that's also going to happen.
That's fair. When it comes to like the progression, PoE 1 has had, you know, years, a decade plus of content and lessons learned and the progression of new leagues and trying things out. PoE 2 has only had, or quote unquote only, it's pretty fresh out the gate, but we have had 2 considered full-blown league releases. And with the 0.3 Abyss and 0.4 Alba, which we had recently, right? So I'm just curious, what kind of lessons have you guys learned from previous league releases, which has been helpful for the 0.5 one when it comes to PoE 2?
It's a tricky question because, like, I mean, we effectively learn these lessons every time. We've been doing it for so many years. The thing I guess we've been fighting. I was thinking about this earlier when we were talking, actually, is like, in a way, we've been fighting this content war against PoE 1. Where it's like, okay, it's like PoE 1 has all the stuff. We need to get PoE 2 to some kind of standard. And so that's been like why we've needed to, in these recent leagues, to like, you know, make something that feels very, very substantial. And like 050 hopefully wins the war there now. And it's like, we've reached the point where, you know, we've reached the point where we can say that we're an ARPG that has enough content. And that's why we're now able to say like, okay, before 1.0, we can focus more on like balance and all that sort of stuff, right? But it's like, I honestly feel sorry for other ARPGs in some way, where like they have to like in order to even get to the point of being able to say you're competitive, you have to first win this like war versus PoE 1 of like the amount of shit that's in a game. So you know, like that's very hard. It's like, it's weird that how we also had to fight that, but yeah, like. Look, I feel like we do know how to make a league at this point and all the things you need to have in it. Like, I mean, in fact, there's a very popular GDC talk that Chris made, which I still think is 100% correct in terms of the stuff that you need to have in a league to make it work. And ultimately, all with PoE 2, it's just we need to just take that stuff, you know, to even better and like get up to a polished level that is like higher than what we even needed to do before and that kind of thing. But like, I mean, we know how to do it. We've done so many leagues at this point.
Honestly, the newest discovery, I would say, that is probably the hardest thing is integrating it into the start of the game.
Yeah,
because the start of PoE 2, like one thing that we didn't want to do, and I'd say PoE 1 has failed at this numerous times, is like all of a sudden you start the game and then you're just in some subzone that's in some other dimension, and you're like, what is happening? And it's like, okay, can you really say your game is like gothic horror if you're, going into some person's memory or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, you just where am I? Like, what's even going on? It's like can get a bit techy, can get a bit sci-fi, can get a little bit like just out of there. So honestly, when we're thinking like, it's a big thing that comes up now, where we were even thinking like, what the hell? Like, can we really just have a bunch of Vaal stuff in the forest at the start
that
of
one
the
was interesting. That one was interesting because we weren't going to do like when we designed that league originally. Going into the past was the only thing. Like we didn't have the past versus present temple, and the present day temple was a response to the fact that it felt immediately strange to walk out and be in Act 1, and then you're randomly traveling into the past in this Vaal thing. And so like we effectively had to make another version of like a bunch of those rooms in order to make that work and sort of still feel reasonable in Act 1.
Yeah.
And
So
that is something we never would have done. We never would have done that in PoE 1.
For sure, 100%. Because you had that full pristine temple with all the living Vaal and everything. But like right now you encounter that at like second half of Act 3. It's a whole moment. If you just come out and you're fighting some basic zombies, a couple of crabs, and then you're just fighting like the full force of the like maximum power Vaal armies with and then you go back and you're just in a forest fighting a wolf, and you're like, what the hell's going on here? And so it was a stupid amount of work, because now we had to make undead versions of all the monsters. We had to make and some of them needed, and as soon as the thing's undead, it can't use the same animation set. It has to look more death, it's just a ton of work. And then all of a sudden, all the
I don't know why we're talking about this. You should just put powers for every league. That's how you make a league. You just make everything powers.
So Act 1 and 2 can, but it honestly makes so much of a difference than just like, the world doesn't matter because I can just, apparently
This is going to be something that in 1.0 is going to be a real challenge, right? Because we're expecting, obviously, a lot of people who haven't played the game before. It's really important that whatever we choose for the league to be, it has to be in every area, and yet it also has to be that it doesn't feel out of place. Honestly, like looking at it now, I'm like the Runes of Elder actually does that pretty damn well, and it's almost a shame that we did that one here and not in 1.0, because that would have been a really good 1.0 league. But we have to effectively somehow pull that off again and make another league that feels like fine in Act 1 and but also fine in Endgame, that kind of thing. So
we have to do it 1,000 more times, right? So
I suppose so, but like it's especially important for 1.0 in my opinion, just because you've got so many new players. But it's always going to have to be something that we consider that we never really thought about in PoE 1 when we were designing leagues. There, it was just whatever, like I guess the feeling always was that like people have played this a bunch of times, like like it's okay to just have like a weird eldritch nightmare on the beach. It's fine, like we'll just live with it. It's okay.
I mean, we have gotten better at it in PoE 1 as well over time, but it certainly had its moments where I was like, what the hell is going on this beach right now? In the swamp with the rowers, and all of a sudden I'm in some other place. It's just
it's kind of funny. It's funny you mentioned it from that way. I actually never thought of it that way, but you're like, it does kind of make sense. Like if you're not really familiar with PoE at all when you play the game for the first time, and you're just like, what the hell is going on here? But speaking of league mechanics, talk a little bit about some of the ones that were reworked here. I got a few basic questions around that. So Breach. We'll talk about Breach for a moment here. The Genesis tree is coming. Big surprise. They brought it back from PoE 1 goes to PoE 2, and it looks even bigger in PoE 2, notably only jewelry, right? But like, what kind of changes and lessons did you have to learn from the PoE 1 to implement it in PoE 2, and what did you know you wanted in it and what you didn't want?
A big decision we made, and this is like a big, honestly, philosophical thing that could have future ramifications that we end up having to go back on, because it wasn't too long ago where we had, tile loot versus ground loot versus all that kind of stuff, being a thing in PoE 1, and I'm sure it will come up again another 100 times. But you have this thing where, should a league just give the same drops, aside from ignore the bosses and their unique drops, should a league's rewards just be the same as world drops? Should it be at its ceiling worse than world drops? Should it be, there's all these different questions here. And the thing is that what we have decided here, and this is an actual conscious decision we made, is that we wanted the rewards from leagues to be able to be better than world drops. And then thus comes to the important part that comes from it, which is it can't be better than everything. It has to be better than some sort of category for some sort of build. So it's not exclusively better. It's not like, oh, the thing that comes from here is 100% better than everything else. It's like for this build, for this build, for that build, you know, these types of characters or whatever are definitely going to want items from this kind of league. Now, I'm not saying it's easy to get. It's not like it's just trivial. It's not like it completely demeans the world drops. But we have made the decision here for sure that we wanted to say, and the Genesis tree was the big thing that we discussed when we were doing this, is like, well, do we want to be able to get things that can be better than what you can find in the world? And now, obviously, you still have to do the league in order to get the crafting material in order to create them. So you can't just fully bypass the itemization as is. But this is a decision we made. And as a result, yes, you get some pretty powerful stuff on the Genesis tree, and it's going to be pretty hard to get, but it is a thing you can do. But that is something you'll start seeing a little bit more from every league, where some are, for example, the Runes of Elder, and let's say it goes core and all of that. I mean, probably for some builds, the socketables that come from it are going to be better than any you could probably find in world drops for certain gear, certain slots, right? There's these avenues for each, and hence why the Genesis tree is focused primarily on jewelry. Like it just straight up gives some of the best items, especially for casters and summoners in particular, that you'd be able to get compared to things that you could find in the world. And I understand some people are like, I don't want that. I just want the world drops to be better. And some people are like, no, that's the target farming. That's what I want to be able to get. That's what I want. I see that and I want to go for it. And there's a bit of a different crowd for both there. And sometimes it tilts too far where it's like, well, what's the point in doing anything but breaches?
Sure.
Just do the breach and move to the next area, do the breach, move to the next area. So there is a balance there for sure. And it can pretty easily over time tilt one way or the other. So we'll see what happens here, I guess. But the important thing PoE 2 does that PoE 1 hasn't been doing as well at, but is still something that we have a similar philosophy on, is that it should be that at least it's not for like every slot. Like if the Genesis tree could get best armor, best helmet, best gloves, best boots, best weapons, best everything. Well, what the hell why do anything else? At least now it's like, okay, I can possibly for some builds get the best amulet, probably for all builds actually get the best amulet. Sort of. And then for some, get the best rings for summoners and casters, and for, you know, that kind of example, then at least you're wanting to go, okay, here's why I want to do breach. I'll get these items when I have them good, and then I'll do this other league for this other slot and do this other league for this other slot, and that's the 3 leagues you're farming. And then once you've got those gear, maybe you change to some other leagues, all the meanwhile trying to get mage bloods from world drop and to do headhunters and all of that, and, you know, your classics. So yeah, that is a decision we've actually made here. That is, I suspect, something we've never really necessarily talked about, at least not for years, about whether or not we want rewards from leagues to ultimately be better than world drops or more exclusive, or, you know, things that are ultimately exclusive to it. So it's a decision. It's where we're at, and we're going to try it, and hopefully we'll see how it goes.
That brings up 2 interesting challenges for me. One is, how do you educate the players on knowing if there's the best of each of these? How do you overcome the challenge of making sure that the education portion of the players, so they know that you can get the best of each one of these leagues from each? And the other portion is then, how do you handle the situation of things like Alkengo, like the most standard, I'm going to run a map. Like if every other league mechanic has the best of something, does that mean Alkengo has like the worst of everything? Like how do you handle both of these challenges?
From the educational standpoint, well, that's kind of in each's league's responsibility. You'll learn that over time, generally speaking. But that's where the things like, okay, the Genesis tree, you can read the nodes, you can see the helper text, you can see what kind of stuff you can get out of it. You might not know exactly what mods, what tiers, and what values, but honestly, I prefer that to be within the discovery axis anyway. What it does say is your rings can now be X, and you're like, okay, well, that, like, you know, summon a bunch of
one way people might find that out now is because when they mouse over their item, there'll be a little build guide note there being like, you need to go to the Genesis tree and do this. So that can be one way that people will be finding that out.
Oh, there you go.
True, for sure. And so, okay, so what the other thing is let's say there's enough leagues and every league covers every slot. So like, let's say there's 10 leagues and each league is best at one slot. Well, why do I need to do anything but you can't do all 10 leagues at once, which is good. But it is obviously still important that, for example, you still have to craft these items. You can't, even if you could print the base type, you can't just infinitely now craft that item, right? So that's an important thing of needing to make sure that you're still acquiring all the core currency. You still have to do the content with the leagues in it to do it, obviously. But yeah, this is a risk. For sure, I can see a world where this is just okay, well, any ring or amulet that ever drops in the wild, sure, it can be okay, it can be good, but it can't be the best. That is the consequence of this. It is 100% the actual consequence. And I do believe they can generally be good enough. And as long as that we're niche enough with what the leagues are doing, that it won't be too problematic. But shit, it's easy to cross that line. And now, rest in peace, all rings on the floor. Just may as well filter them off and you'll never see them again. It is a fuck up that can occur. It is the actual risk. And as we add more and more content and it fills more and more of these voids, yes, you will reach that tipping point where now world drops suck. You will, almost certainly. It is something we will try to not have happen. But, in leagues down the line, yep, probably will. And there's always a way to address it. It's often just some one of those, then, okay, we've done this massive rebalance of this, retargeted this, and this. But it's obviously hard to know when we're not there yet because we don't have enough leagues covering enough slots to actually result in this problem yet. So still quite hypothetical, but I can see how it will occur, a year to whatever after release. It will just be okay, whoops, we did it. And now there's, you filter out more and more items eventually. You run certain leagues. But at least there's the other benefit there, which is you can only run a certain number of leagues at a time. So at the very least, you'll be varying your gameplay. You're still going to be chasing for, and because your tree juices everything, you're not I'm only, because that is another actual benefit, and it's something that suffers a little bit in PoE 1. So let's say on your core Atlas tree, you juice ultimatum. That doesn't do anything to the rest of the map, generally speaking. I'm talking at a general level here. And so if you're fully invested in that league, or in League A, B, and C, you'll generally zone in and do League A, B, and C, and then because the rest of the map isn't invested in at all, you could just say, I'm going to leave, right? Because the value of doing more of those as fast as possible, assuming infinite map items, which you have probably most of the time, you'll just go farm that thing over and over and over and over again. In PoE 2, because you can get full investment, that map is as valuable as it's going to be. And that league, every league is fully invested, and those leagues are as valuable as it's going to be. And so, aside from tablet modifiers specifically being one of the only access, and I guess technically choice on the Atlas Masters, but those are quite broad, or can be quite broad, you're generally going to want to kill everything, clear everything, and you're not going to have this thing where some stuff is hyper juiced and other things are just at base level worthlessness going on in the map.
Well, I don't know whether it was in the patch notes either, but it probably was. But do people know about the whole thing that we've done with tablets and the random content? I'm not sure if you, I don't know if you guys are aware about this. That's on the same vein, by the way, which is that it was really important to us to make it so that you don't feel the need to juice everything. Because this is coming back to that idea about reducing the amount of time that it takes to kind of get to the point where you can do infinite farm. There was this thing we wanted to say is that once you've filled all your tablet slots, you actually don't get random things appearing anymore, and that means that you don't feel the need to juice everything. You can juice the several mechanics that you want to do, or maybe it's just even one mechanic if you want to. You put all the tablets as being that thing, and then now no other random content doesn't appear, so you kind of don't have that. It's fighting against that same problem again of needing to, of making so. Once again, you'd have the situation where if we had it so that to what Mark was saying, where a random breach could appear even though what you're doing is delirium, then it would mean that you've got content in the map you don't actually want to complete, and that's kind of the thing we're trying to avoid there. So you still can go the random route if you want by using a radiator tablets and stuff like that, but if you want to, but if you're just focusing on a specific leagues, you just do it that way.
I had a quick follow-up to what you were saying, Mark, about you have to do the league mechanic to engage with the crafting part of that league mechanic. And as someone who very much enjoys being a hideout warrior, crafting items in PoE 1, just sitting in your hideout and just doing my crafting, it sounds to me like the idea is to kind of like funnel the people into, for you to engage with this quote unquote best in slot items for XYZ builds, you have to engage with league mechanic. You have to quote unquote play the game. You can't just sit in your hideout. Is that an intentional design, or is that just a byproduct of the current design that you have right now?
I mean, you can still buy the items. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you can still. But is it intentional? I'd say most of the time it is intentional. I'm just trying to think of all the examples.
Is Hiveblood the only one like that, though, really?
Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing, like, you can either always shortcut you can either buy the thing to do the crafting, or you can buy the thing at the end, right? Like, generally speaking, some element of, because we try and keep almost everything tradable, but Hiveblood in particular, yes, but then, okay, you can't trade, excess tribute offered, for wanting to do Rite of the Nameless spams. You can't trade, what else can't you? Obviously, you can't trade breach biomes, right?
Right.
So there's like different things of stuff that can be traded and can't be traded. But generally speaking, we've tried to make sure, all the rewards can be. We've tried to make sure that Pinnacle keys can be traded and stuff like that. But yeah, there's going to be some leagues where you won't just be able to entirely sit in your hideout to do the crafting. You'll have to just buy the product if that's what you're wanting to do. Like, if you don't want to breach, you're just going to have to buy the breach items. And if you do breach, well, then you get to sell it to those people, I guess. So win-win for everyone, ultimately, at the end of the day. Which is a cool thing, by the way, because it still comes down to that meta market shifting. And I actually think this isn't... I don't know how I ultimately feel about this when I actually will play it in an actual economy. But let's say minion meta. Let's say everyone's playing summoners. Let's say everyone's some sort of minion across the board. Let's just say, well, now am I going, well, I have to run breach. I have to, because the economy is such that it would be bad not to. And when I hear that, it's kind of like, well, now I'm not playing the content I want to be playing. But on the other hand, I'm getting rich. So like, and maybe I am playing the contents I want to be playing. So there's a little bit of like, I don't know. But then like all of a sudden, let's say a new build gets discovered and everyone's like, oh, this build uses this item comes from this. Everyone quickly change leagues what they're doing, which you can just do. Like, that's a thing you can do aside from, again, there's some tablet farming you'd have to do and whatnot. But it's quite interesting. And generally speaking, this isn't, even though no one necessarily puts a label on it, that probably is how it naturally works. Like, even in PoE 1, that's somewhat true to some degree, where there's certain things you want to get, but it's just probably on less of an extreme and less of a less intentional level for sure, whereas we're being a bit more intentional about it here. So I think it will have that impact, and I don't know, like, there's something I'm happy about that in theory, but I don't know if I'll be happy about that in practice. And so that's an interest. And again, I can't test that internally because there is no economy, right? So none of us can. I mean, the 5 of us trading to one another is whatever. That doesn't matter, right? There's more than 5, but you get my point. And then the idea that if I feel like I have to play Breach because of X, or I have to play Delirium because of Y, or I have to play this or something, like because I'm someone who cares about trade and cares about the wealth of my account, that could be something that actually makes me feel a bit sad at the end of the day, because at the end of the day I might want to just play the content I want to play for what the content offers, not for the economic value of it. And some people would just be like, play SSF, which, fair enough, I guess, but we'll see what happens. I don't know. I'm curious to see, now that we're being more intentional about certain builds being more powerful due to certain items from certain leagues, whether or not that's going to then result in a feeling of having to play content you wouldn't want to necessarily play, but now you feel like you have to. So we'll see. Maybe people ultimately like that. Maybe people don't. I have no idea.
Speaking of really strong items and Breach, the new Absinthe Amulet looks pretty good. Implicit is granting an aura. Can you have any aura on this, or is this a limited pool?
Any It should be every persistent buff
Yeah.
skill that is
Every
on the uncut. Yes.
Every spirit reservation you can get for free on that amulet. If you roll it.
What?
Okay.
There are 3 amulets. There's one for 30 reservation costs, one for 60, one for hundreds. It's obviously harder to get the hundreds. And thus the 60s over the 30s and whatnot. And yes, but again, like there's a little bit of like good luck as well. You probably have to do a lot of farming to get what you want here. But this is what I was saying about when I was saying it does arguably offer the best item. It's just like the ease of like, you know, the rare equivalent of the mage blood of amulets, you know, is like it is there, and I want that to be something you can get. Now, does that mean world drop amulets are less valuable? Well, yeah, it will. It 100% will indeed result in that. And the same way that the existence of a headhunter and a mage blood demean the value of rare belts in general. Well, rare belts are in a bit of a sad state. Hopefully a less sad state anyway. But rare belts are demeaned by the existence of very broad, very chase items. And so there's this interesting, well, do you want the chase items or not? And, you know, there's a bit of philosophy around that. And people tilt one side or the other. And so we're just effectively saying, yeah, here's this freaking OP thing. It should be hard to get. It shouldn't be easy to craft. And it should be something you want to chase. And there's a very clear path to it, not necessarily an easy path.
Hopefully that Delirium amulet is competitive with it on some level.
Yeah, which also very hard to get the right one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't reinstill those at all, right? Like the Delirium amulet, you get the 2 instills and you can't reinstall one of them or something, right? Like you get the 2 and you're locked.
I believe it unintentionally allowed you to replace one, but I did say it shouldn't. Like it should just be you want to get as many as possible. And when you get the right one with the right 2 notables, you're just like, holy fucking thank God, I can go buy 6 or whatever. Like, you know, it's just, you know, you want that really, really like. Again, these are super rare but super chase, right? And you'll get one that has 2 okay instills and you'll still be happy. But like when you get the 2 that are the 2 you actually want, you're gonna be. I want you to really be stoked. So the point where every single time you find this, you're like, holy shit, this could be it. This is this is the, you know, the 5 mirror drop here.
On the topic of Delirium and jewelries for that matter, in Delirium, we're now getting, you know, some additional crafting options when it comes to jewels. Not jewelries, but jewels. And I mean, they're already, let's call it a fairly strong place is where we'll put jewels, at least from most of our perspectives. So how do you guys feel about the balance of standard rare jewels versus something like adorned, as well as time-lost jewels in the current state of the game, or 0.5 rather?
Well, the crafting for jewels was mostly that, like, the rationale behind adding that was ultimately, okay, like when you finish like a full sanctum, you end up with just like 45 jewels in your inventory if you take all the jewel chests, and you're like, okay, like 4 of them are okay, I guess. And it's just extreme item saturation just to get the good ones. And it's like, well, we're missing crafting here, really, right? We need something here to help guide it to be that they're okay, especially given that the jewel sockets are on kind of core pathways. You get them and then you're like, I don't even have anything to put in this for like a while. So at least now, and obviously you get some of these in the Act 4 in the campaign, you'll be able to, you know, craft something that at least has 1 or maybe 2 useful stats for your character. If it had 1 by default and you add one that's decent. So that's just a win for like your more broad player base of just interacting with base jewels as a base level. In terms of the actual jewel balance, well, yeah, you'd kind of just end up with get all the jewel slots. You know, like there's so many really good endgame unique jewels, as well as just like what you can do with the top end power of jewels, that like you end up with that thing with a lot of passive trees, just like I need to get every jewel slot, and then you end up with these kind of really shitty looking builds, honestly, where they're just not even taking anything, and it's like, what's the cheapest stuff I can take along the way, but otherwise it's just jewel slot. There's definitely some problems here. How do I feel about it? I mean, I kind of in one end I'm like, well, it's like a very it can be a very satisfying, advanced, and honestly complex crafting system that a lot of people probably like to overall engage with, where their more traditional build ends up looking like this crazy jewel fest. On the other hand, it's got the problem where, you know, every character kind of devolves into looking like a very similar thing. You know, I'm trying to think whether or not I ultimately enjoy it or not as a player. Probably less so. Like, I probably think it's ultimately in not a good spot. Like, I would say if I had to not, I would, you know, I don't like the idea that ultimately 95% of the passives on the tree don't matter at all, even though some of them don't matter anyway. You know, something we need to fix, but I don't like that it just ends up being that. But I do like the, like, I want to chase all the really chase unique jewels. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm kind of like a bit, you know, hit and miss on it ultimately. I don't know. I'm curious what, like, you know, a lot more people think about this kind of level of meta and itemization. Because, like, you know, I see a lot of stuff that's quite, you know, I hate jewels, or like, you know, keep these unique jewels but not the rest, and then obviously timeless jewels are a whole different level of complexity. But yeah, I mean, ultimately going back to the original point here is we wanted to create a thing that's just improves the experience from the average player who's just engaging with a few jewel sockets, more than, you know, thinking about what it does for the end game, you know, the end of the end game, I should say, kind of situation with character builds and itemization. So, because it buffs that as well. It's obviously just an upgrade for them regardless. Which is maybe not a good thing, but I think it's one of those things where that's a thing of, like, do you think about every consequence? And it's like, well, kind of, but this is a good enough improvement for, you know, regular players, such that, you know, it was worth doing, and we weren't caught up too much on the consequences of what it means for later. But I would expect more changes later, much later, of course, like some point later, to around this kind of dual meta. But I am also very curious to see what, you know, what everyone actually thinks about this. Like, do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you, you know, do you like, I guess the bigger question is, do you like that a lot of characters just end up wanting to as many jewel slots as possible and wanting to just have jewels everywhere? Because once you can craft, it's effectively a way of saying your passive tree goes from what we've said it is to what you want it to be, based on the fact that you can craft and put in there exactly what you want. And that sounds like a good pitch in isolation. But then when you play it, you kind of have this problem of, like, I can't play my build until I've earned some large amount of money and done all this, which again could be good as well, where it's like the builds at the start of the league, the builds in the middle of the league, and the builds at the end of the league aren't the same thing, because we had to let the, you know, because enough jewels had to be found and or created in order to create that many characters. So I don't know. There's wins and losses to this, and I'm on the fence, honestly.
Okay. Well, we can move on to the miscellaneous portion here. We're at over just about 2 hours. I know we're trying to keep it shorter, so we'll do the miscellaneous portion. We got a few questions here, and we have like just a handful of patch notes related questions, and then we can kind of wrap up. So to start for the miscellaneous portion, what's going on with Toda? Like, where's Toda currently at?
Well, we don't have it. But yeah, like I was really hoping that we would be able to get that the final Ascendancy trial in when we did Act 4. We couldn't quite make it. We didn't have the time. We obviously couldn't fit it into this cycle in 050. So the question is whether or not, I suppose, whether it comes in 1.0. I think that's looking unlikely, to be honest. Like, I don't think it's as important as some other things.
Wow.
But
We're not going to
get do. It's kind of come down to whether or not we can somehow make what that does sort of merge with something else, I suspect. If there's quite a lot of work.
What we've been trying to do is, you're talking about the merging, is similar to how Runes of Elder is a kind of like expedition Kalguran thing. Yeah, to be whether or not, like, it's like kind of like, are we able to create a kind of Karui league that links into Tota somehow, and thus we get to double dip on the content.
Exactly. So if we're able to make a Karui themed league, then that will mean that we can effectively share some of the monster workload and like boss workload across both, which would then make it more viable to do alongside some of that other content. And yeah, with Runes of Elder, we got to effectively do an expedition upgrade at the same time as what we were doing as doing a league, and so that kind of like really helped with that. Like, and part of the reason we did that for this one is because we had so much other stuff going on with the other leagues as well that we figured making the core league be be integrated somewhat with one of the leagues we're upgrading would help quite a lot. But yeah, maybe we might be able to squeeze Tota in if we were able to do a similar, if we were able to do a similar move like that. But otherwise it'll probably have to if we can't do that, then it would have to wait for like a 1.1 or 1.2 kind of situation.
Wow.
But yeah.
It's quite interesting when we look at Tota, because when we made it for PoE 1, we were obviously still developing PoE 2, and we were like, oh, this will be cool to kind of be able to then use there later, and like, you know. And then now the quality bar has risen so much that when we then look at Tota in the context of PoE 2, like we thought all of the animations, the models, the art, the combat and everything would be able to just like, we can just copy paste it, it'll be fine. And now when you go look at all those monsters and like just how long it's been and how much we've stepped up our game with stuff, it's like these don't hold up at all. Like we have to, and so we had intended for it to be a way easier thing to just, you know, transplant from one to the other and like do some, you know, some polish, some touch ups. So now it's like, okay, we have to like effectively reanimate all of these. We have to, and so it's a ton, you know, you've got the multiple monsters of each tribe. You had the 10 chieftains, and let alone all the story moments and advancements we've done there. It's like, this is a shit ton of work where it's like, you know, I mean, it's the monster work of, it's probably like 75% of an act levels of equivalency of actual monster work. Like it's quite a lot. Obviously an act, a lot of it is the unification of the environment, the monsters, the narrative, etc. Whereas like obviously the part that is easier for Tota is it ultimately takes place in one arena with one back room, and thus it's faster to ultimately make. But in terms of just raw animation work and raw effects work for all the different skills, all the like scripting on the game design side, it is a ton of work. And so it's just been, again, when we were like, okay, is Tota being missing or the end game not having goals? Well, obviously the end game. And so when we're just coming up with this stuff, we're just going, what is the most important thing we need to do now? And Tota has not been it, given like it would be different if it didn't require a ton of work. Sure. We could probably chuck it in alongside one of these things, but it just somehow is not held up at all. And yeah, so if it weren't for just straight up being too much work, it would be there already. Like, it just is an insane amount of actual work to do that is going to cost some pretty important stuff.
I appreciate the answer.
That makes sense.
Tota is just a personal favorite of mine because that was the league I joined, PoE, actually. It's my first league ever with Tota. So I was curious. Go on, Gazi.
Well, I was just going to move on since we're kind of over the time already. I do apologize for that. Appreciate you guys sticking around. The next question I have is kind of a twofold question. I'm going to start with the first half of it, which is more about the design philosophy of unique items in PoE 2. PoE 1 has their version, and PoE 2 seems to be more build-defining options in terms of the unique items. So just a little short tidbit on what's the philosophy differences here? What's the focus?
Well, this changed a lot in recent time, by relatively recent, in the last couple of years. Because we had a bunch of uniques. We honestly believed at the start that we would be able to just take a bunch of PoE 1 uniques, modify them slightly, and put them in PoE 2. And that just completely 100% is not a thing we can do. Like, it's interesting because the combat systems in PoE 2, working the way they are, had a way larger influence on what's an acceptable unique than what we kind of expected. And it's honestly surprising because like you'd still think, oh yeah, why can we not, like, how is it not that there's just like 50 PoE 1 uniques we could just literally take and just put in PoE 2 if we wanted to? And then you go through each one and you're like, okay, well this one can't be for that reason, this one can't be for that reason, like the dominant stat would just totally have to change. Like it's weird how it sort of ended up that way. And so even also when we did add a pile of uniques in I can't remember what patch it was like after 0.1. There was like a patch where we added a bunch of uniques, and those uniques, which were kind of like more in the PoE 1 design scale, have not really held up either. And honestly, we're going to have to go back and probably like remove and or change a bunch of those as well. Like, and this is like the sort of issue that we have in the kind of the sort of mid-campaign kind of like, you know, like those uniques. they're just like really not holding up. And yeah, it's just funny how we just no longer have the ability. Like you kind of it feels like we've kind of got to have a skill or something on a PoE2 unique in order to make it sort of somewhat worthwhile. So yeah, like I don't know I could even necessarily say exactly what it is particularly that's caused it to be that way, but for whatever reason, like when I look at a like a PO1 style designed unique at this point, it does not rise to the level that we feel like you'd actually use it. And so yeah, I do wonder if one reason can be that I sort of suspect it's got something to do with the fact that in PoE1 build you tend to just optimize one skill and that's all you're doing. And so then, like in PoE2 context, we've got to care about more about that, like the larger build. Like there's a lot more going on with with a PoE2 build. At least that's the intention. So I sort of have this feeling it's got something to do with that, but I don't know if I can necessarily promote exactly why it is that we do feel like a unique has to be just a significant amount more going on.
Well, that's fair. The follow. Sorry, go ahead.
I do got a thing there because like what we're making now, like a lot of what we've been showing with 050, like a lot of the stuff you've seen recently, this is kind of this age of uniques is probably it's not something we've done before really. Like all the uniques we're making are definitely the most expensive in terms of development costs that we've ever made. And as a result, they are more build defining. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you do have then the uniques that they kind of have their single special stat. It's kind of like 4 stats. One of them's a bit special, and it probably just has some sort of end game when combined with 6 other variables has a thing. And the problem with those is that they don't hit for like most people when they get them, they're like, what the hell? Why would I want that? And they just end up being these really like hyper niche end game things. So that was a type of philosophy we had where they were effectively meant to be the puzzle piece, right? And you need multiple puzzle pieces in order to do the thing. Those uniques are generally failing when you find them, like generally speaking. And Jonathan did this exercise with me yesterday. We opened up that same character when we were looking at something. He showed me every unique. We went through all of them, and he just goes like, and he was like, why would I want this? Why would I need this? And I was explaining the like end game build used with them. And he's like, well, how the hell, like, okay. But then it drops at level 23, you know? It's like, and so there is a problem with that. And so our new philosophy has just been like, let's try and make these way more fulfill a fantasy. Because that's my biggest thing is just, I want you to feel like, you know, and that you saw that with the grenade launcher thing where it's just like, I just want you to just be a freaking grenade man. Like just run around spamming grenades. Come on. Right. And then like the face breaker thing, obviously recently is pretty cool. You had the like, the Raven and more summoner like delirium things. It's like, what if you were like Tang Mizzou himself? Like you had his powers. Like that's a cool fantasy where you can like create mirrors and illusory things and like bend reality, and like that's a cool fantasy to me. You know, so some can be more narratively driven, some can just be like fire grenades everywhere. And that stuff is resulting in way cooler things. Like way cooler. Also way more expensive to make. And so what I want to get better at yet, I think something we haven't now. So I think we've now got the puzzle piece side. We understand what that looks like. We understand what the other end, which is the more expensive fantasy fulfilling build defining thing looks like. What we don't have is the middle ground where there's that kind of not as expensive to develop, but pretty impactful, just not like ultra impactful ground that we still need to do as well. And I think once we've figured that out and we've got our understanding of all three, now you are going to see generally that middle ground and higher ground. You're probably not going to see as much of those original set, and we're going to have to go back and honestly raise the bar on all of those, or a lot of those at this point.
Yeah, they are getting upgrades to some extent due to the Kalguran like unique upgrading thing, so that has helped. But there's still some of them that are a bit unsalvageable that we just need to do something with.
And by the way, there are unsalvageable uniques in PoE1 as well, right? It's just that there are 1,500 of them or some number, you know, and so they kind of get lost in the weeds, as opposed to right now, the I would say, you know, there's a mid ground of them where they honestly you get it and you're like, I don't know why, I don't need it, you know. So there's, to me, so I think what we've now made is like a lot of what we've made is so epic. I really love them. And like, you know, even talking about them and doing the videos, and there's so many more that haven't been, you know, talked about or found yet, which is awesome. That just keep going, and some secrets, and, you know, the barracks and all of that coming in. So once we get like now that we've got that rhythm and we're working that, we're just going to get more and more efficient with it. But I honestly think, and this is a thing that I've said to Jonathan as well, where I'm like, I think maybe our number one problem in the game, like after 050 comes out, now that if Endgame's in a good spot, now that we've sorted that and we have a good progression, we've got goals. My personal number one fault with what we haven't got doing well, especially because of our reputation, is that I think that our thing that we need to step up and do the better at, that we currently have done very poorly, is our unique items. Like I straight up think that we were meant to be the like weird epic in terms of ARPGs, like we're real good at items and itemization and uniques and crafting systems, and like I do believe that we generally are, and I don't think PoE 2 is an accurate reflection of what our capability should be.
I completely agree.
Now that we're delivering like real cool shit, I just want to go and just fix up all of them. And so that's another one of these like 050 and between 1.0, I want to be like, no, we have to save the uniques. Like that's a goal I have. Now, obviously, different people have different levels of understanding of what's important to the game or the most important to the game. But like, I would be shocked if that's not on like most people's top 3, top 5 list of like things that are the most wrong with the game currently.
I completely agree.
There's a lot of really good. There's a lot of really bad, and we can't have that. And I think the biggest thing, and like to give a more specific example, you know, on my big rant, a lot of our uniques are level 1 to 30, right? Level 1 to 30-ish, and a lot of them are the puzzle piece. Some are good, some are not good, some are whatever, hit and miss. And we've got this like now endgame band that we've added, and we've added a bunch to the new pinnacles. We've got a bunch of things you can farm for the different leagues. What we don't have now, and I think this is a huge problem, is between level 30 and 60. There's kind of just nothing. There's kind of, honestly, it's like barely any start to drop. And I don't mean the level requirements, I mean when it can drop.
The annoying thing about that as well is that often, like when you're in that band, the things you're getting are the ones that are like level 1 to 30.
Yeah.
And so then what you end up feeling is like you get these and they just feel like they suck, because like if you'd put them on at level 20, they would have been fine. But you're putting them on at level 40 and it's kind of like, well, this is just garbage.
Yeah. Because of how our uniques work, our unique drops work, where it's like, first I'm going to decide if I'm dropping a unique, then I'll figure out what the unique is. It's like, I'm going to drop a unique. And then it's like, okay, let me go and find one. And it just so happens that every unique lower than that level is between 1 and 30. It means pretty much any unique drop between level 40 and 60 is just going to be bad. Like, a niche cases aside, like some jewelry in some cases, but like, that is a big problem where pretty much every unique you find in the current mid game, and thus ones leading into endgame, you have very few ones that allow you like get you set up for endgame. Like there are some, again, there is a few, but like it's nowhere near good enough. Nowhere near, not even in the right, you know, we're like 20% of the way to good enough there. So, you know, I don't often talk about what I consider to be, you know, because generally when we're talking, we're obviously talking about, you know, what's new, what's happening, but we don't really get to talk about what's like just fundamentally wrong. And I'm trying to be a little bit more transparent about some of that stuff, because that is the stuff we're aiming to fix and address and really try and salvage and save and get perfect between 050 and 1.0.
So yeah, we're hoping to fix that in one of the kind of economy resets that we'll do between 050 and 1.0. Is here just like add a shit ton of mid-game uniques.
On the topic of fixing things, my follow-up questions that I really was curious about this. I do first want to say that I'm a big fan of the Kalguran upping your uniques. This is the first time since PoE, 10, 12 years ago, I think, since I'm actually considering using Shober Chabber on a build. So, I mean, that's just because of the Kalguran upping. So that's funny. But my question is, regarding these build-defining uniques that you're adding, they're supposed to be interesting and impactful, giving you a skill, and people make builds around them, like the Grenade Man, for as a prime example. A problem that I've seen being discussed a lot in the community has been that your main skill is supposed to have maximum sockets. It's a quote-unquote 6 socket, but it's actually only 5 sockets, right, in PoE 2, with maximum sockets. And that is gated behind a level 20 version of the skill, which means it's going to cost more if the item is popular in the market. It's going to be rarer to find. It has a higher level requirement to drop and all those aspects. but there's already a power scaling difference between having a lower level skill of the skill itself and having a level 20 version in terms of what the benefits are. But the socket difference is so massive. So I was just curious if this is something you haven't thought of, or if it is a design you're happy with moving forward, that the max sockets is only on the level 20 versions.
We've discussed this many times, just FYI. Like, it's come up, came up a lot. But I think for 050, and I'm hoping this gets done in time, and if not, it'll be shortly after. I was adding, like, as a kind of, like, in an ideal world, you'd just be able to either, well, at least you'd be able to just, like, okay, why not just allow using a perfect jeweler's orb on it, for example, and then just.
I was literally about to say that. Why can you not just jeweler's units?
But for now, you can't currently, but that will be the goal. But for now...
Is there a reason we can't allow that?
I think just time constraints, but I mean, feel free to look into it yourself, but...
I mean, like, is it really that hard to implement that?
Look into it yourself.
I don't know.
I have no idea how it works in terms of the way the storage is, but there should be a
exactly.
way.
I have absolutely no idea, so we can find that out. But
this is
I might be able to just do that, honestly. Like, it might just be possible.
Being that, if that doesn't work, because that is the ideal solution, at the very least, I was going to get a temporary, just like recipe thing added where you can get a level 19 item, a level 20 uncut skill, and a perfect jeweler's orb, and then level 20 and 6 link the item as like a thing that we were just going to enable. That is
just doing the perfect jeweler thing. I feel like that would be. Surely we can make that happen. I don't know.
Well, follow up on that if you want. I have either way, multiple solutions. We will hopefully get one of them in time.
All right. Well, one last question, and then we're going to cut out the patch notes related and some of the other ones here, since we're kind of at the edge of the time. If you want, we can do just a couple rapid fires from chat, and then we can call it there. Sound good?
Sure.
Okay. So I want to follow up on something that Ziggy D asked. Very selfishly of me, admittedly. I'm playing the Spear Walker. I think it's the funnest looking thing, like, in the entire review that I saw. And it was about Tame Beast. And he mentioned that Tame Beast is like a level 9 cut gem. However, you can ascend and take the node that lets you capture beasts way before you can actually get to the cut gem. And you mentioned you might have a solution to this because it's a little bit of a noob trap, right? You take a node that you literally can't even use for like 10 levels or something. So I was wondering, when I saw the patch notes, it still said the gem starts at level 9. So I'm curious, do we have a solution for this coming to 0.5?
I thought we were going to just change it. I thought we were going to change it so that the uncut gem was lower level. I thought we were going to make it so that Tame Beast was just a lower level skill, but that's what the last I heard about it.
Certainly, the last discussion I had was that we were going to move it down to a lower level skill tier. So it could be the patch note was wrong. It could be something caused that to not happen. But that was definitely both Jonathan and I's understanding of the last of that conversation. So, but yes, we don't want that to be a problem. We will do something about it.
James just messaged me that Tame Beast min level 7 is level 7 now. Patch notes missed it for some reason.
Perfect.
So he just messaged me that as we're talking. So that is the answer to that. So all good.
Well, unless Ghazi got a last question for him before we start the rapid fire and wrap it up here.
I was just wanted to have some sort of curiosity into your minds with the progression of what's going to happen between 0.5 and 1.0. We don't have to go too deep into it, but I'm curious because you, Mark, mentioned something that I keep referencing, and that is the plugging the holes. And I love that. I don't know why I love that comment, but plugging the holes and getting balanced.
Gassy loves plugging holes. Oh, I already knew that.
So my question, just to keep it short, is what are the things you want to prioritize in the updates between now and end of the year during this time frame?
So unique items, as Mark said, very big one. Any like a lot of skill balance, a lot of just like character balance, adding some skills to existing classes where necessary, and or changing functionality of how they work for just like where we're going back and just making sure that everything that we already released in the in 010 is like in a better place, like just like all of that sort of stuff, like that's big. Passive tree reworks, just like improvements there is like another big one. And I mean, I guess that's probably the main stuff, really. Like, well, I think, and then
it's a lot of the other chaos damage, getting that to be better, and thus acolyte, ignite builds, burn damage over time in general. Just all these things that we've been, and honestly, it's come up in a few expansions, and it's just like, well, we just haven't got there yet, and as I said, the passive tree, the base types, the bloody hope, the general. I mean, more replayability improvements certainly would also be good if there's any new one. Like, I've been really nice after people play through this and get a feel for it to obviously identify the new evils. What's bad, what's annoying. Like, now that people are going to be replaying through Act 4 for the third time.
That's 100% a thing, right? So, like, is that like Act 4 didn't get a huge amount of changes in this patch, and I suspect part of the reason for that is because we haven't had the time. Like, there hasn't been a like resurgence of people saying I hate things in Act 4 because people haven't necessarily replayed it that much. So, like, I'm sure there'll be things in Act 4 that after this patch, people will be like, "Oh, this is the horrible thing in Act 4 that I don't like." So we'll see. We'll just have to see what that is at that point.
I'm not sure if they'll come sooner or later, but I'd like to do sooner. I'd like to, when we have our like next economy reset between, that we have either the third ranger or the third druid ascendancies come in. Like, it'd be nice for all existing classes to have all ascendancies before the full release. What else? It's just the things, because they're just missing, right? It's just clearly like, okay, they're just missing the class. So as much of that as possible would be really, really ideal. And yeah, I don't see much else. I'm sure there is.
Just wanted to verify. You said that economy resets. That just to verify that I heard you right. There will be economy resets leagues.
There will be economy resets. So there will effectively like there will be leagues. It's just that they're not going to be like. They're not going to be the same as what a proper, like it's not going to be an 06, what an 060 would be. And the reason why we say that is because we don't want to set the wrong expectation, and like it's not going to be like the giant mega content release in that way. Now there will be content, right? Because we're talking about adding uniques and skills and all that stuff, but it's not going to be quite the same. I think, like, I wouldn't expect necessarily to be like like on the other hand, we're generally pretty good at taking little and turning it into a lot. So I guess we'll see what we end up with there. But I mean, the thing we've referenced before is like Legacy or Phyrexia type of stuff, right? Where you just take some existing stuff, you jumble it around, you like come up with a few things. Like, hell, maybe you fricking add an Atlas Master or do the jumble and Atlas Master stuff, like Mark was saying earlier, like as a league, and just little stuff like that you can do that doesn't take too long to make it sort of worth playing again. But really, the main reason we want people to be playing again is so that they can test all the new balance and changes to kind of core systems that we're changing.
Whatever the league end up will be something that has the least amount of impact on the team doing the balance, right? So as long as we're not using their time to then not solve the things they need to solve, that will be a big thing. But just things that are hard to even think about. If there is an economy reset, well, then we have to look at Runes of Elder, how it succeeded, how it failed, and integrate it into core. If it's fully successful, add an Atlas passive tree for it, all of that stuff. So all of that will be happening around the same time. And, then we'll have here's what our minus the 1.0 league, it's like, here's what our end game is and what our end game looks like. So we'll just,
which is the other thing, right? Because who knows what random end game changes we might then find we need after this is released, and then we have to make it. We have to presumably any patch we do is going to involve improving that, whatever problems might end up being. Like, it's just stuff like that we're going to have to do.
I had one quick follow up to weave into this last question, so I'm going to keep it real short. You guys have done an excellent job in the past, track record history of shaking up the meta with character balance changes on a consistent basis, where people are not just playing the new content, but we're playing the game in a different way very often from league to league to league. So the question then goes to the changes coming from 0.5 or between 0.5 and 1.0. Will they also include character power balance and meta shakeups?
I think DM is about to go insane.
It's like 2/3 of what it will contain is that.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
That's the goal, right? It is 90% of the goal is, and because uniques are ultimately about this, is just how characters are built. Well, let's say 80%, whereas 20% is like improving the content more. So most of it is going to be more oriented around character builds, character powers, etc. But and even to the degree of like, okay, there are some skills that don't feel good to use. There are some, so it's not just power, it's also feel, how these things feel to play. Are they rewarding to play? When I do A, B, C, D and do my combo piece, does it land, or is it just like meh? You know, so going back and revisiting even some of the effects and some of the audio, and obviously the numbers, you know, like whatever we can do to really just go and say everything we've now, or maybe it's like, you know, there's an A and a B, but we need the C, you know, you need the finale piece to it. And so we go and add that. So you have new skills, modified skills, changed both aesthetically, cosmetically, and in balance, potential new classes, a whole bunch of new uniques, I'm hoping, with a bunch of uniques being rebalanced, you know, like all of this stuff across the board. Now, normally, you know, when we have a big reveal, we don't talk about all this stuff because we like everything to be, you know, new, but like it's pretty easy to talk about all the things that we need to make better, and so that's really what we're going to do, and we'll just hopefully be able to get through it all. But you know how these things go, we don't stop development, so even though full release occurs, we're going to still then balance in 1.1 and 1.2 and 1.3, and you know, it's just never going to end. So if we don't get 100% right, you know, we'll just keep going.
All right, so we're going to do a couple rapid fires here.
Lost TM's audio there.
Oh, how about now? Am I back? We good?
There we go. There we go.
All right. Yeah, sorry about that. Good. I was typing in the chat to tell them to put their questions together, and I hit the mute button. Okay, so we're going to do rapid fire from the chat here, and then we're going to call it a day. So first one here, is there anything added to the game you guys would consider to be like aspirational content? Basically, they're saying extremely difficult content coming to the game, like Ubers, etc.
Look, everyone has their own definition of this, I assume, to some degree, right?
Sure.
Some people are just going to find the farmed pinnacles to be that. In terms of Ubers, we've specifically made sure to not. So you obviously have your quest version, your non-quest version. I didn't want a then Uber grade of that, and the reason is that, not to say it won't eventually happen, is that it puts a bit of a difficult skew on what is considered an acceptable character at a fundamental level, because now they have to be able to do the hardest content in order to be good. And with so much incomplete character balance and stuff we still need to work on and fill the gaps and everything, I wanted to make sure there wasn't just stuff that is like for the, you know, the most OP of the OP of the OP builds, because it was, and this is something that it already was doing, where all of a sudden the viability of a character was being judged by some people against whether or not it can kill a pinnacle, some whether it can complete maps of certain tiers, and some where it can kill the Ubers, and it creates a bit of a difficult thing where it's like, what is considered acceptable? And so the new pinnacles are hard, like for sure. You know, all the fights are pretty damn difficult, and as I said, you can generally juice these things and do like there are ways via the Atlas Masters to take them to slightly next levels. There are things with the different leagues, with the different league trees, to both add rewards and make them harder in the form of multi-choices. And so there are ways to do it, but they wouldn't say they're classically defined as Ubers anymore. I wanted to get away from that. We'll get everything stable, we'll get everything good, and then we'll look at re-adding some of that stuff back. Be it either via an actual Uber fight or be it via, you know.
So the answer is no.
Something like that. We'll see.
Quick question about Recombinator was moved out of the game, so we're kind of curious about what's going on with that.
Yeah,
kind of didn't like it, to be honest. Like it's always been in this annoying balance position where like the numbers that it has to be like to not be completely cracked and broken never been satisfying for the players, and we've never been able to somehow like get that right. So we just decided, you know what, screw it for now. We'll see. We might revisit that again later if we can find some way to change it in some way. But yeah,
I think all the new runes we added, all of the Runic ward, it's just so much better. It's so much more understandable, so much more broadly usable. Like not insanely overcomplicated. They're just better. So we were like, look, it had recombinating, it just doesn't need it. Like, here's all the stuff that we can do that is clearly better. I mean, at first, we kept it because there's like a little bit of a loss aversion thing, but it's like, okay, look, we're at like, do we really need it at this point? So ultimately, we just decided to axe it, noting that like everything we're adding in its stead is just significant upgrades IMO.
Okay. I'm assuming similar logic with like the expedition shops. They're still in the game, but they're kind of like not the primary focus.
They're gone.
The
expedition shops are dead.
Gone as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
I didn't like those.
Basically taken from PoE 1, and like they never really were proper stuff, and
Well,
yeah, we
it
just
was taken and then downgraded, and then kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, we don't want it to be. They were just not good. So again, it was like
Okay.
we
I
did
didn't
with,
like those anyway.
let's get rid of the stuff that's just clearly subpar and replace it with stuff that's just clearly better. Like we don't have to be so attached to it, and you know.
Sure. Okay. On to the next one here from chat. Corruption. So you guys made like a fairly significant change, actually, the corruption, where instead of it like randomizing it, it's like a multiplier, right? So you want to divine it first before your corruption. Would you like to speak to that change, though?
Well, that is what we did. Yes. What was the goal there? I guess ultimately liked the idea that when you get I mean, I agree. I understand why some people are going to be like, no, I have to use divines now. Well, yep, that's what you got to do, right? You got to make it much more, a bit of a harder decision to decide, am I going to divine this item to be its perfect role and then do it, or am I not? And I guess, I don't know, I just prefer it more. It's a bit more hardcore. It's a bit more Val. It's a bit more, costly, and generally speaking, I'm a fan of that, as opposed to just every time I find this, I just Val it no matter what. Which, I just think it's personally better, but I can see people not entirely agreeing with that, and you're right to that opinion, and too bad, I guess, is my answer. But I just 100% prefer it, and I'd say most of the people we spoke to definitely preferred it as well.
I've seen it overwhelmingly liked. I haven't really seen almost anybody saying they don't like it.
Well, in that case, then woo, win.
In previous interviews we've had, a conversation has been brought up multiple times, has been inflation and wanting a divine sync, and every time the comment has been, we need more uniques, we need more interesting uniques to divine orb, and I never really felt that it really did that job enough. And I think that with this change alone and continuously adding more uniques, you might actually hit the spot where this is doing exactly what we've been screaming for the past year.
Right.
Speaking of divines, one thing that came up was divine orbs that are now more common, which was one of the patch notes. I mean, small line, big decision. So is that there to balance out like the changes of the Atlas and less Quan? It's really not that more common, or what's that line mean?
It's definitely more common, divine orbs. I'm almost tempted to not mention the reason why we did that, but I don't know how you feel about that, Mark. Sure. All right.
Just do it. Just do it.
Yeah. All right. So basically, okay. So this is going to sound ultra dumb, I suspect, to some people. So we'll see how this goes. But okay. So the temple, right? The temple had ridiculous amounts of loot going on due to snake strategy and all that sort of shit. So there was stuff like going that, right? So basically, there's this concern that we had that people are going to be like, okay, so the temple is obviously nerfed, right? Like snake strategy no longer a thing. Like, it means that like, and so then what we believed was going to happen is immediately people are going to be like, oh, previous league I got X divines per hour and now I'm getting Y divines per hour, and like just annoying shit like that. And so we're like, if we just change the drop rate of divines, nobody will be able to make the comparison anymore. And there won't be like this ability to say like this.
That's a terrible reason
about that. So
that's a terrible reason to do that.
I just want you to know, by the way, that the troll answer that we legitimately thought we might do for a second is, what if we just remove divines from the game? That was like a legitimate troll answer that we had as like the opposite of this. But instead of doing that, we're like, okay, no, let's make them more common. They're not like, it's not like they're dropping like candy or anything, right? But they are like, they're an amount more common that is like such that that doesn't make them quite comparable anymore. And that's just down to the fact that divines, for whatever reason, are the thing that people use as the sort of way that comparing loot. So because the loot is kind of like there's a lot of changes all over the loot everywhere, you're kind of I guess it just makes the whole thing less comparable, and that is truly part of the reason why we did that. But yes, we do want to divine syncs as well, which is the Vital thing. So yeah.
All right, well, I'll do one more here, and we'll call it. We're at 2 hours and 35 minutes here. So just a real common one that keeps popping up is people are just asking about performance improvements. Like with every league, you guys typically do quite a bit of performance improvements. Are we expecting that going in 0.5? I know you talked a little bit about Steam Deck, for instance, but console, PC, all of it.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, look, there have been changes, but I wouldn't say that they're revolutionary to the point that I would call them out specifically as like we made big performance improvements. Like there's just the sort of usual iteration that we do. One of the big things that we've been really trying to fight has just been this annoying freaking driver device removed thing, which maybe people don't even know what that is, but like sometimes the game will freeze and then it reboots the graphic stuff and then it all comes back, like that thing. And like we haven't fixed it yet. We're still looking into it. It's just been like the engine team has been just banging their head against it for so long now. Like we're actually at the point now, by the way, where like Nvidia told us a couple of days ago, we want you to ship us, like air freight us a PC that reproduces this. Is like the thing. So now we're gonna steal one of our PCs and send it to Nvidia to see if that will get the ability to work out what's going on. But like yeah, there's been a lot of trying to sort out like this kind of stuff and like work on crashes and that kind of thing. So there's less like performance in the sense of like, you know, frame rate higher. But we still will be doing more about that and like the 05X patches and that kind of thing.
Yeah, okay, you know what I like? One last kind of random question here, which I don't know if you have an answer for, but I'm going to try, okay? I know Hex Blast was the skill people were using before. It got changed at one point. It really hasn't hit a point in which it's really seen much use. I know it was beloved by some people out there. I know you might not have the answer off the top of your head, but could we see some love for Hex Blacks or Fix or Revert or anything at some point? Like, where's your stance on that skill?
I have not thought about that one for a while, I have to admit. So it would be one of those things that would look at an 05X timeline, I would say.
Sure.
Because yeah, it's just if it's not working and people aren't using it, then that'll be one of the things that we want to looking to.
Well, yeah, you made it not work with blasphemy. You killed it.
Well, that's it. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say the chaos hits and chaos dots just needs a whole bunch of love, and reviewing all the skills and the mechanics adjacent to it is just part of that. So, you know, there'll be some adding skills, some changing of roles. So, like anything could happen, really, but it is on the radar for sure.
Okay. Well, there we go. You know, I mean, we could go all day, but we're 2 hours and 40 minutes in, so I think we'll call it here, boys. I would say thanks for your time. You guys went really in depth on a lot of stuff, and I really enjoyed the
godly interview from DM and Gazzy. I thought it picked up a lot more at the end when they were asking like those in-depth questions. In the beginning, I was listening. I was going to take my notes like normal, but I was like, there's not really anything to talk about. There was some pretty interesting stuff that they said at the end. I thought the thing that they said that, like, I've said this. I think I've said this every other day for all 7.5 years that I've streamed ARPGs. And I always say, why in every game do uniques have to absolutely suck dick? Like almost every unique, like 90% of every unique in every ARPG is useless. And I just never understood why it has to be a thing. Then people say, Rex, you're dumb. You don't know anything about game design. They have to be useless. You just don't get it. It's like, oh, thank you for explaining that to me, Einstein. But I'm glad to hear Mark say that every unique in the game is pretty much just total dog shit. Because it really is. It's like you use a vertex or you use some uniques in some situations, but even when they even talk about the 1 to 30 uniques, no, it's even those like, oh, I pick up the legendary chest, the unique chest piece that gives me 100 life, but it also means that every time something hits me, I start bleeding. It's like, well, I was gonna use this for a while, but now I guess I won't even use this. It's like, no, every unique sucks. Always, except for like Headhunter and Mage Blood, and it's definitely the exception, not the rule. Not every single unique has to be godly, but you look at half of the uniques. It's not even a PoE2 thing. It's all of the games, and it's just like these things suck. So I was very glad to hear him say that. I thought it was so funny when Mark was just roasting John. I actually felt kind of bad for Jonathan. I'm like, wow, just let the guy play, man. He's having fun. He's like, we have some problems at a fundamental level here. It's like, holy. That was good though. I enjoyed it. Guys, by the way, thank you so much for all the subs during that thing. A lot of people sub. Thank you. A lot of you guys asked me questions like about Rax, what build should I go? Like when an interview's going, guys, I'm not gonna interrupt the interview to answer questions. I apologize. Like maybe that's rude of me, but we gotta watch the interview, right? Where are the swords? I don't know. All right, guys. I am gonna hang it up here. I'm gonna purposely not stream crazy hours for the next few days leading up to the PoE launch. But tomorrow I'm definitely gonna make a new build. We're gonna do something different. I'm gonna finish Act 1 with Plant Daddy to make sure that I'm good, but we need to be ready to go on Thursday or Friday whenever it launches, and we're gonna Giga Blast. The updated Plant Daddy build is there. It's pinned. It's on Mobalytics. I'll make a video about it. We got everything going for it, so we're good. Let's raid Gazzy for... I raided DM yesterday. Let's raid Gazzy today for the lovely interview. Maybe he's going to keep going. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Appreciate you. And tomorrow we'll do something different. Maybe I'll do minions. Maybe I'll do monk. Maybe I'll do Essence Ring Contagion. Maybe I'll do multiple builds. I'm not sure. Have a great night, guys.